just as well be putting, her in some other outfit, right? And telling her that's what she thought. So I realized how we all do this. And as I look on TikToks now, and I don't spend a lot of time there, but when I do, I see how people take lots of pictures of their kids, and they think it's kind of really amusing to um, photograph your kid doing things that you set your kid up for. And I ask myself, gosh, we were all so programmed, weren't we? This happened to all of us. And I say to myself, and all of this thought that I have too about that I'm a resistor, and I'm a freedom fighter, and all of those things that were taught to me when I was growing up Jewish. And I came from a very strongly Jewish identified household. My brother today is an Orthodox rabbi in Israel, and my sister and her family all lived in Israel. And it's just been lots of years of me identifying with lots of things from my childhood. But the thing that I think about the most is how we've been taught to be resistors, and we've been taught to be fighters instead of being lovers. And what I found out when I had cancer, and this is really where I'm going with this, when I found out when I had cancer, was I wasn't going to get rid of cancer. I had to really accept cancer, and I wasn't able to fight cancer. I really had to love cancer. It took me a long time to figure that out. It took me close to a year of being in bed to figure that out, which I think is a pretty long time to be laying in bed. And I had the great benefit of getting my diagnosis during breast cancer month. So I'd sit there with, the remote, and everything would be like breast cancer, breast cancer, breast cancer. And what I didn't really know then was that all of this stuff was really me attracting this through the own lens that I was looking at things with. So what I want to ask you is, what are you thinking about right now? And if you came here because you love being Jewish, well, then I want to celebrate that. And if you came here because you're conflicted about Jewish, well, I want to celebrate that too. Because I just want you to celebrate all of the journey that you have being you, because there's no shame, no blame, and no time wasted. But here's the thing: go for the better feeling thought. Go for the better feeling thought. Psychedelics are amazing tools because immediately they connect us to the better feeling thought. Now, you might want to slam the door on the better feeling thought, but it's going to keep knocking. And it is. It's going to knock at your next psychedelic experience. It's probably even going to knock next time you go to some cannabis, because, and I think cannabis has beautiful, wonderful psychedelic properties. I think we should not discount cannabis in the conversation about psychedelics. I work with cannabis often, with my clients and with myself. And I've spent some very important time in the world of psychedelics since October 7th. And I found that it's really helped me a lot. And I've had a number of clients who have been feeling more challenged than ever during this time period. They don't know what to do with what's going on. They can't pull themselves away from the news. They feel like all of their feelings about their friends are now, they're wondering, are people really believing stuff that they're saying? Is it anti-Semitism? Is that really what's happening here? A lot of my friends and clients have been talking about this. And what I want to say here is psychedelics are a really great way to get to the center of this question. So we frame a question before we do the psychedelics, and then we go into the psychedelic experience with a question. Now, the question that you want to have here is not a why question. The question you want to have is a what question. That's a much better route to discovery when you're looking at some of the answers in your life. And You want to ask yourself if you're just repeating conditioning or stories or just something that has gotten you attention all of this time. And, we can get a lot of attention for what's wrong in our lives. You see it all the time. I was thinking also, there's just all of those reality shows, all of those shows where lots of people, news, things like that, where lots of people get attention for things that are not so great. But the question is, what would you like to really fill your mind with? And that's the place I want you to start from here. Like I said, when I had been a participant in the Hopkins study, all I could think about was how I could bring access to more people where they could have an experience. I had a way to get psychedelics, but lots of people didn't, and lots of people don't. They don't have a community. They don't have a network. They're not living in a decriminalized place. They've never used psychedelics, and on and on and on. And that's why I created Serve Medicine. And I think I'm going to find a way to drop that in the chat too. So let's just do that. So and Giving Tuesday is a really big feature of what we're doing. Serve Medicine provides a free psychedelic facilitated journey to someone with a life-threatening illness or end-of-life diagnosis. And we're a 501c3. Your contributions are tax deductible. We'd love to partner with your business. We'd love to partner with all the folks that you're friendly with, and all the folks that you like to hear music with, and all of the things that you fill your time with that make you feel whole and wonderful. So let me put that in here just a moment, and I will do that. Oops. Sorry, 1 second. And the way that I came up with Serve Medicine, when I came up with it with my husband, Donnie Kaplan, who was a psychedelic attorney before he died, we decided that we were going to create something that could improve this access. And then, of course, if you heard before when I was talking to Larry, that in September of 2022, Donnie had stage 4 cancer, and he got diagnosed and died within just a few weeks. And we weren't prepared for any of this. So Serve Medicine took a little bit longer to get out there, but we'd love for you to help us out with Giving Tuesday, like I said. And it's like, if you've ever tried to get in a study, you know how difficult that is. So it's important that we have access. Oh, thank you. Who's got to go? Okay, thank you. And thanks, Steve. And sorry, folks. Anyway, so here's the thing about that journey that I had at Hopkins. So when I was at Hopkins in my journey, which was the second time, because like I said to you, the first time I didn't trip. The second time, and I knew that I had received a psychedelic, I saw Jesus on the cross. And I thought to myself, wow, Jesus on the cross, Jewish girl gets Jesus on the cross. This is going to be really big here. What does this mean? So I said to Jesus, okay, so I know you showed up, got something really important to tell me. What is it? And Jesus said to me, you're really attached to your struggle. And I didn't know what that meant, except I felt myself being sucked through like a black tunnel. And I saw myself just go like right into lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes. And I saw myself crawling the Trail of Tears, and I saw myself crawling through the dirt and the mud over and over and over in lifetimes after lifetimes after lifetimes. And it was really a surprise. But when I started to integrate that journey, I really understood. I started the beginning of understanding of what that had all meant, because I knew that when I was doing my my activities, when I was thinking about anything, I always was doing it from the place that I misunderstood Tikkun Olam. Okay, I really did. I misunderstood it. It's not about you fixing the world like single-handedly, right? It's about seeing the world as if it already was fixed, as if everything is really happening in a perfect kind of way, and it's up to us to make things even feeling better to more people and feeling better for ourselves. So it took me a while to really understand that. And many, many things happened along the way when I found myself in actual geographic places that I saw in my journey. And in my journey, it took me to Colorado because I ended up going to Naropa for the psychedelic assisted therapy certificate program. And I was one of just a small handful, not even a handful of people who weren't licensed that were accepted to that program. It was the first program I could get into because CIIS wouldn't accept me because I wasn't licensed. So anyhow, there I was in Boulder, and I saw myself standing at so many of these places, and it was so eye-opening to me. And what I realized was I had picked lives that were hard over and over and over again. So many times I really saw myself living as a coal miner and a gold miner, and I found myself in coal towns and gold mining towns, Nederland and Grass Valley and Nevada City and Morrison, and just over and over again. And it was really just astonishing to me. I didn't even know what to do with that information. I thought I had integrated that pretty well because I came home and I was a lot more loving, and I was a lot more active in the Jewish world. I immediately this is really kind of great. I had this opportunity in 2017 to go to Israel with the JWRP, which and Momentum, if you know what that is. And it's a wonderful organization that's really, really led by Orthodox women. And I live in Pikesville, which is a really Orthodox neighborhood. So it's got this incredible flavor of having just fabulous kosher food here, and it's also got this wonderful thing of getting really, really quiet on Saturday. So, and also on the holidays, seeing everyone just really happy, walking along the sidewalk, walking with their families. And I really love living in Pikesville. And it wasn't my idea to live here. It was Donnie's idea because he was from Baltimore. I didn't know anything about Pikesville, but it was a pretty great place to be. And I met these Orthodox women, and I learned so much from them because I never lived a life around Orthodox women. I had only the beliefs that I had, that I knew that I didn't want to live according to laws that I felt were discriminating against women. I thought it was really about fighting against those rules. What I didn't understand, and what I've talked about actually at Sisters in Psychedelics, was how when we gave up the separation, when women gave up the separation of and I know that there's another conversation here, but when I gave up the idea of separation when we're ovulating, what I didn't understand was we gave up being treated as if something special is happening. So that's one I would really like you to hear a second, because what happened was along the way, we also got our sick days down to, what are they, like one a month maybe? And anybody who's ever had their period knows it is a whole lot more than one day a month that you might not feel like going to work. So this has all happened, I think, in a way that we just respond to things and we resist them. And psychedelics for me really helped me to see through so many of these constructs and to understand that I was brought up with a lot of beliefs by people who didn't understand either. They didn't understand a lot of the Torah, even though they thought that they did. They didn't understand a lot of the reasons why we do anything. And mostly and I heard this from a friend of mine who was talking um, about a menu for a wedding for her daughter, and said she didn't want to have like ham or seafood there. And I said, well, what is that brought to you by? Where does that opinion come from? Is that really how you feel? Like, what do you think about that? And she said, well, I just don't want people to judge me. I'm afraid of what people will think about me. So I wanted just to say, so many of us have been moving along afraid of what people will think about us. And we haven't even questioned it. We haven't even questioned why we do things. So psychedelics for me helped me to really look beyond what I was programmed to think, and to notice when something came up, to really ask myself, was this part of my core values? Was this part of my core beliefs? Is this something that feels important to me, that I'm not just doing this because somebody else told me to do it or somebody before me did it? In your own life, I want you to think about something that you don't really like very much doing, but someone told you to do it. And ask yourself if that's something that you could change. And if maybe the next time you're planning your psychedelic journey, that you could, before you do your journey, take a piece of paper, make yourself a list, ask yourself some questions. Of course, notice what you're noticing. That's the key tenet to anything here, being in awareness. That changes absolutely everything you'll be doing when you get into some awareness. And notice how this goes. So, and we know that, and I like to say this one, right? God doesn't call the qualified, God qualifies the called. So if you're asking yourself, oh gosh, I feel so not ready to do any of this. This feels really difficult. I don't really know how to get there from here. I have these beliefs. I don't really know what are mine. I don't really know what I've brought. I don't really know how I feel. This would be the time to ask yourself. And remember, when you get to that journey, you didn't come for just a great 6 hours. You came for a great rest of your life. So psychedelics are meant for us to communicate with the infinite. And the infinite is really just all about love. In relation to what's gone on in the last 6 weeks, I have to just tell you from a personal perspective, that was sandwiched between my sister's birthday and my birthday. My birthday is October 8th. My sister's is October 6th. And my sister died in July when I was at Boulder on the Dead Tour. And she was in Israel when she died. So her birthday was very important to me. And I reached out to her kids that day, and I said to them, they're in Israel, and I reached out to her kids and said, I just want you to know I'm thinking about you. And I want you to have a really beautiful, wonderful day in honor of your mom. And let me know if there's something I can do to help you, to be with you. And I didn't hear anything back. And then on October 7th, after the events happened, the terrible massacre at the Nova Festival and all the other horrible things that happened in that attack in Israel, then I sent that message to them again, because by then I was really worried about them. And on October 8th, my daughter was here visiting me, and we went to a beautiful street fair here in Baltimore. The weather was beautiful. We're having a great time. And I couldn't help but slip into this thought that said, wow, what if this was the last time I was going to see her? What if I see her right now, we're at a festival and somebody just grabs her, throws her on the back of a truck, and I never see her again? That's where my head went. And that's when I knew that I had some work to do. That's when I knew that I had a toolbox. And that's when I knew that I didn't have to stay in that thought, because that thought was only going to take me to a place that was just going to jeopardize my health and my relationships with my fellow human beings, my sister human beings. So I have done lots of work in the last month to remind myself that we can discover the wonders of nature, that psychedelics really are a great tool, that they're beneficial in every stage of our lives, that they can help us to alleviate the suffering that we bring with us. And I like to tell this story. It's I always say, when you're schlepping around this stuff from your past and thinking that it had value, and it's bringing you all of this justification for how you live or things you believe, it's time to put it down. And the story I tell is a story about Harry, and I'll share this one with you. So these guys go golfing, and they split up into two groups. And the first group goes golfing and they finish and they come back and they're there at the clubhouse and they're waiting for the other group to show up. And they're waiting and they're waiting and they're waiting. And finally, they see the other group coming up to the clubhouse, and they're walking really kind of slowly, and they look and they're carrying Harry. And they get up there and the other guys go, "Hey, what happened? We've been waiting for you. Where you been? What took so long?" And they go, "Oh, well, we got to the second hole and Harry had a heart attack." And then the first group goes, "Oh my God, what'd you do? What happened?" And the second group goes, "Well, we hit the ball and we dragged Harry. We hit the ball, and we dragged Harry." And that's a whole lot like your life, right? If you keep hitting the ball and dragging Harry, then we know that it's time to lean into your psychedelic toolbox and work with something. And we can start with cannabis. We can go through all of the psychedelics that you're familiar with. If there's something you're not familiar with, you want to get a facilitator or a guide to help you with this. You want to use the benefits of ketamine, which are legal, and which is legal. And if you're living in a decrimmed place, there are lots of other great things you can have access to. I really want to encourage you to lean into that psychedelic journey by asking yourself what it is you'd like to let go of. I know in my own experience, I really had to let go of lots of beliefs. And one of them was that, of course, like we all face this one, we don't want to shine too brightly. We don't want to call too much attention. We might not want to be the only Jew in the room. We might not want people to notice us. We might not want to ask for that holiday off. That is our holiday. We might not want to do any of this stuff because we might fear being noticed. And I want you to take a look at that and ask yourself how that served you, because there's a part here that's so much about normalized Jewish suffering. And I want to really get to this one now. And I want to thank Rebecca, who had a conversation with me when she approached some folks in a conversation that I was a part of, and asked them where was their commentary about the Nova Festival. Why have they been so quiet? Why have we not heard about this in the psychedelic space more? Why have not people organized, fundraised? Why haven't people volunteered their time? Why haven't people spoken to their Jewish friends? I know as a deadhead, I find myself in spaces where lots and lots of folks are in an altered state. And when I thought about that festival, the first thing I thought about was, wow, what if this would have happened at a Grateful Dead show? So what if this would have happened in my own hometown? What if this would have happened? And I remember feeling like, where is the outrage here? And everybody was wondering, that I was friendly with, why is it so silent? And even by the time I got to Wonderland, which was just a couple weeks ago in Miami, people were still talking about this. It was a real topic of conversation because so much of the community had been really silent. And it would just come up in just small conversations, not in a big conversation. And I really had to ask myself, what is this? And I took myself back to the times that I've heard from people. Well, you Jews, you're the lawyers, you're the doctors. You know how to do this. You're the bankers. I've heard this in psychedelic organizations I've been a part of. I was amazed that I actually heard people say things like this, that Jews were colonizers and Jews were privileged, Jews were white. I've heard all of this in the psychedelic spaces I've been in, and I'm not saying I've heard this in every psychedelic space, but I've heard it at least once in the psychedelic world. And I've noticed a lot of folks that I know who haven't said a thing at all. And it took 10 days for MAPS to come out with a statement. And I wanted to ask Rick the question when he was here, which is what was
still here.
What was going through his mind when he heard that about getting a statement from MAPS? Because, like I said, this normalized Jewish suffering is the part that is kind of our first response. Oh, we can handle this. We're pretty strong. Look, we've been slaves, right? We built the pyramids. I could keep going, right? I know that I stopped telling the Seder story for a couple of years at one point following cancer. I got really tired of telling the story about us being slaves, and I just couldn't tell it anymore. It took me years of a break to be able to tell a different kind of story. And I've tried a number of Haggadahs, and I know all this. There's lots of great stuff out there. I've been to, yes, of course. Yes, exactly. Jews were resilient. We can do anything. And listen, I'm the queen of resilience, right? I had stage 3 cancer diagnosis. I'm Jewish. I've been through the death of my husband in just a little over a year, and I don't have my head in the oven, right? I'm here helping others. I'm here understanding that there's a whole lot more here to my life, and that I really came here to have fun, like I said in the beginning, and that's my intention. And I know that we're all here just to really have fun. Thanks, Brian. Wow, thank you. And I really just think that so much about our lives are really covered up in shame. And like I was saying to Larry, starting with how we feel about our bodies, I'm 65 years old. I've been through bunches of surgeries now for breast cancer. And I got to tell you, not probably, I do. I love my body more than I've ever loved my body. It's gotten me through all of this. It's come along with me through everything, through the birth of my daughter, through all of my surgeries, through all of my criticisms of it, through all of my wishing I was taller or any of that stuff, all during my life. And now I know that I really am living at the best time of my life, the time that I can really appreciate how far I've come. And that's the only reason why I look back at all, is just to see how far I've come. Because otherwise, I know all of that really isn't serving me. So I want you to be really taking a kind glance at all the stuff that's happened to you. If you're living right now in grief, and I know many of us are, most of us are, I would say all of us are. Okay. If you're living in grief, I want you to know that grief is really another place um, that's just been opened through love. If you didn't love, you wouldn't feel grief. So I want to remind you to feel more love. And when you know, like if you had a pet and your pet, or if you had a toddler, right? And your pet or your toddler did something that was not what you wanted, you probably, well, if you were really a great pet owner or a great parent, you'd pour on the love. Okay, you wouldn't pour on the punishment. And so often we've just, even when we poured the love on another person, we put the punishment on ourselves. How did I let myself have this happen to me? How has this happened to me over and over again? So those are thoughts of survivors. So psychedelics for me really helped me to take a really good look within. I've used psychedelics, like I said, since my teenage years, and in the 70s. This was a long time ago. And I really hadn't understood how they could work really until my trip at Hopkins. And the reason why I say it that way is because what I understood was it really needed a partner. It really needed a way to integrate it in a way that felt like I could change what I believed first. So the next time before you have a psychedelic journey, I want you to prepare. I want you to ask yourself those what questions. I want you to come up with a vision for the life that you would love before you would even think of doing those psychedelics. As soon as you start thinking about using a psychedelic, you're already preparing. So I would like you to take this opportunity to really move into expansion, not into contraction. And you know how you know you're in expansion, you feel good. You know how you know you're in contraction, you don't feel so good. And you don't say such great things. You don't want to engage in such good stuff. You don't want to eat such good food. That's how you know you're in contraction. Have a little bit more. And then I'm going to open this up to questions. So I wanted to also talk about this idea of normalized Jewish suffering. I know for a long time when I was, thank you for listening. You're wonderful. Thanks, Denise, for being here. I want to open this idea to normalize Jewish suffering. I know when I was a teacher for a long time, I thought about why are teachers paid so little? And I looked at some of the professions where people could really be paid a whole lot more, right? Like social work, like all the techs in hospitals, all the folks who, I mean, there's loads and loads of people who really don't get paid enough. And what keeps them going back to that job is they really think they're helping someone. They really think what their work is doing is really meaningful. And I want to tell you about this journey that I did one time. This was a really big, meaningful journey. Of course, this was after Hopkins, but I knew I wanted to leave teaching. I really just went to teach because I had always wanted to. I got my master's in education. I was already a body worker. I already was doing all kinds of things that I loved for years and years. But I wanted to teach. I wanted to teach high school. I really loved my high school experience. So I wanted just to go back there and really help people to be more authentic and help kids to really understand that this was a great opportunity to find out who they were while they were in high school. So I did this journey. I sat in front of a mirror, and I remember asking in front of the mirror, and I highly recommend you use the mirror, folks, when you're journeying. And I sat in front of the mirror, and I remember asking the mirror, like one by one, what about this kid? What about that kid? What about this one? What about Nick? What about Samara? What about, I went on and on and on. And I kept hearing, you're good. You did everything you could. They're great. That's great. You can go now. You can go. And I heard you can go. I heard it over and over again. And it still took me another year to sit in that job, because every time I thought about leaving those kids and not bringing them lunch from my house, I started to cry. Every time I thought about what those kids went home to, I started to cry. Every time I thought about if they weren't coming to my class where they could at least have, 90 minutes of feeling like they contributed something positive, and that they, really were their highest authority somewhere in their life, I started to cry. It took me a long time to leave that job. So many of us were the teachers, we're the nurses, we're the doctors, we're the lawyers, we're the researchers. Look at the jobs that we hold. And we're the creators, we're the entrepreneurs. We do all of this stuff, and we were raised to believe that this is what we do. We're the accountants. We solve problems that other people have. So I want you to take a really good look this time in a way you've never done before. Ask yourself, is this part of me because it helps me to be more of myself? Or is this part of me because it's something I internalized along the way, and I really haven't thought about it, asking myself if it gives me joy, and if it's a really positive part of my life, or maybe I'm finished with it now. So I'm going to put my stuff in the chat, and then I'm going to open this up to questions. So please, folks, I'd love for you to do that. Join me here.
Deb, while you're doing that, if I can, I just want to take this opportunity, first of all, to thank you for sharing your insights and your experience. It really is, I think somebody, Brian, used the word profound, and it certainly was. And I think one of the things that's such a valuable thing for people to learn and to see from what you presenting even of yourself. We talk about surviving. When I talk about people who have experienced sexual traumas, people talk about, I survived them. And for me, survival is usually kind of a begrudging acceptance. And I think we want to go beyond that. And I see that you have done that in your own life, not just surviving those things, but moved on to thriving, which is more of an exuberant celebration of yourself and your life and all those things that are a part of it. And I think that's really a big transition that we can all learn to make a little bit better. And I thank you for showing that.
Thank you. I wouldn't wish what I had on anyone here, but I'd want the change I have had on everyone here. And I think that the things in our lives that happen are really just opportunities. And we have to shift our perception. That's really the only thing we can do. So I want us to think about the story you're telling yourself. And I know that there were some wonderful people that were on earlier. I know that Eric said that. I also know that listening to Jacobs, who said that. There's just lots of folks who said that here. And I just know that the way we talk to ourselves really matters. So if you're saying things like, and we joked about it before, I should, or it's more than just shouldn't on yourself. It's so much more like, I'm so stupid. I can't believe I did that. These things just show up in little tiny ways. I always do this. I'm so that. I have a blank problem. Anything you put after I am comes looking for you. So I really want you to notice and change your story. I'd love to hear some questions here, and I'd like to do some coaching here, you know.
I have
I
a
want,
question.
yeah, sure.
I didn't hear your beginning. Thank you so much. I really liked your presentation, but could you say how you share on a practical level how you provide the psychedelic for your supportive journey?
Well, ketamine's legal, and I'm Pratty trained and certified. Anything else, I live in Baltimore. You can walk into a dispensary right now in DC and pick up mushrooms. Um, and many other places, that's true as well. There's lots of things available in lots of places. I always say to my clients, they'll show up.
So you help guide where to get it and all the practicalities.
Uh, I mean, there's just lots of ways to get lots of things. I also really want to encourage people to test everything. That's important. On my website, it says absolutely test everything. Dance Safe has all kinds of testing kits and strips, um and I got to tell you, a really good friend of mine just overdosed on Thanksgiving. And to anyone who knows our good friend Brad Jordan, this is big love is coming out to Brad Jordan, who was a big deadhead, a wonderful person. And I met him through the Fairfax and DC Psychedelic Society. And anybody who's watching from there, my heart is with you all today. I like to say this one too. I like to say, you know, even Tom Petty had a drug dealer. And I say that meaning test your stuff, people.
Can you comment how you dealt with the grief of the loss of your husband through psychedelics?
Uh, well, I feel him all the time. I never don't feel him. I feel him all the time. He's around me all the time. And I talk to him and I see him and I see evidence of him in so many things that I do. And you know, I'm so grateful that I really had the opportunity to really learn so much from someone who was so different from me and who was so generous with their love. So I feel like that really changed me. I'm a different person than I was when I first got with him. I can tell you that he was um just knowing him has really helped me. You know, when people tell you they don't want you to be sad when you're at a funeral and somebody says they wouldn't want you to grieve, they're not joking. They don't want you to grieve. They don't. I hear from him all the time. He's funny as can be. The guy was always funny, still funny. So I just recommend that you really just look for them where they are.
And the psychedelics helped with that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I have just full on conversations with him.
Thank you.
But I thank you're my pleasure. But I've always felt guided. I mean, you know, when you know, I heard the day that he was going to die when I was in Vancouver. You know, I mean, well, that's not true. I heard that the deal was off when I was in Vancouver. And I knew what that deal was because I used to say to him when I was in my cancer experience, you can't go first. I can't do this without you. I could never do this without you. And I heard the deal was off and I knew exactly what that was. And then when I was at the Outlaw Festival concert, I heard September 28th. And as I was looking at the big Outlaw banner behind Willie Nelson's head, and I thought to myself, I didn't even get to tell him what kind of outlaw I was with all my mushrooms and all the gifts people gave me in Vancouver and what a wonderful time I had. And then I heard September 28th. And I looked at my concert husband, Alan, and I said to him, it's September 28th. Donnie's going to die September 28th. And then I heard it's going to be fast. And the most wonderful thing about that was I actually had somebody who witnessed that whole thing and heard it all. Like, as I heard it, I just delivered it right to Ellen. And I just, so I know I wasn't making it up, and I know it wasn't something I imagined. And I get messages like that all the time, always have. And when I'm guiding a journey for someone, I always say to the person, would you like to know the information I get when my guides give them to me? And I've never had somebody say no.
Do you work virtually?
I do, but then the journey, is in person, and people come here and I go there. I travel all over the place for this. I'll be heading out to Santa Cruz area in the middle of this month. I just came back from there. I just came back from West Palm guiding somebody. I travel a lot. My home base is Baltimore. But I have I don't just really guide someone. I have a coaching protocol that's 12 weeks with 2 additional weeks for preparation and 2 additional weeks for integration that are part of my program. And most people come for 6 months because they want to use 3 substances. So in 3 months we use 1. Sometimes we add on another, but in 6 months we have 3. So you can get me at GratefulDeb.com. You can always find me at GratefulDeb.com and ServeMedicine.org. And I want to just say this. I have a book called Wake Up to Find Out that's composed of your stories of how Grateful Dead and psychedelics made your life better. And then we're going to sell the book. That's part of our fundraising idea. So we want your story. If you're a deadhead and you're here, about how Grateful Dead made your life better. I know it's made mine better. And if you're heading out to Ventura this spring, 420, I'll be there for Skull and Roses. I'll also be at the Capitol Theater in December to see Bob Weir. So if you want to find me there. More questions, anybody? Thanks to some of my friends who are here. I see y'all. You're wonderful. Thanks for supporting me. And there's some really great people here who do who also do psychedelic work that I've trained with and that I'm in groups with. And I really love and appreciate you. There's some clients here, so I really love and appreciate you. Some really good friends, some new friends, some people I know from speaking at conferences, and I'm just really grateful. So remember, positive mindset isn't about putting a Band-Aid on top of something and putting them on top of your just empowering thoughts and just hoping they're going to go away, right? We really have to live this. Oh, Amy, yes, question.
Yeah, I'm actually sorry. Thank you so much. You're so great. I love hearing your story, even though I've heard it before. I guess I know your time is up in like 2 seconds, but do you have any thoughts about, like, I have family members who are stuck in this sort of suffering victim loop, right? And not open to psychedelics. Do you have any thoughts or recommendations on how to help them shift their internal dialogue?
I think the question I always ask people is, is like, what if it were easy? What would you love? And what if it were easy? And that's really where I start. Always, what would you love? And what if it were easy? Because, what is your higher self calling you to do right now? It's not calling you to suffer. It's not calling you to like line up with everybody who feels like this is hard. I mean, you'll find a lot of people that identify with that. But that never feels good. You want to go to a good feeling place.
Yeah, I'm totally the opposite of this family member that I'm thinking of in particular. And it's like, I'm like, I don't want to see you suffering. Like, why won't you try new things? And I'm like, what about even just meditation? Or, but I hadn't had the question that you just asked. If you repeat it again, I'm going to write it down. That would be fantastic.
What would you love? And what if it were easy?
What
would you love? And what if it were easy? And ask them.
Thank you.
And let them know I'm here to coach them. I coach lots of folks who don't use psychedelics too. I've been coaching for a long time. And I'm the best example of how it works because, like I said to you, if I didn't have my toolbox, I don't know what I'd be doing with the year that I've had. The loss of my sister, loss of my husband, um, and my daughter had a major surgery this year. Just lots
Uh,
of things had. But I can tell you, I know that we're here for a really good life.
yeah, I love the way that you want to flip the narrative from suffering. So thank you for all of your beautiful insights.
Thank you. Stay grateful, everybody.
Thank you, Deb.
It's a beautiful message to stay grateful. Thank you for that message and for everything you shared. That was very just impressed with so much you had to share and just digesting a lot of deep thoughts. You definitely plant a lot of seeds. So Ariel is our next moderator. I just want to pass it off to her, and the hour is yours. Just take us wherever you want, and just give direction and go with the flow. Let us know if you need anything.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much. It's so exciting to be here with you all. I love that this has been a 24-hour event. It's 7 a.m. on the West Coast, which means it's 10 a.m. on the East Coast. I'm coming to you from Ohlone territory, which is Berkeley, California. So very excited to be with you all today. Very grateful to be with you all today. I know some of you have your videos off. That's okay. If you want to turn it on at any time to see each other, that's awesome. There will be an interactive conversation as part of this. I'm happy to see those of you that are here with your videos on, and I know that this gets recorded and other people will be seeing it later on. So I'm just really grateful and honored to be a part of this and to be a part of all things Jewish and to be having this opportunity. I think it's really amazing to get 24 hours to talk about Judaism and psychedelics. That's pretty rare to have this amount of time to be together. And I want to thank those people that have done it all. That's truly amazing. And I want to thank those of you that have joined me for this hour. Special thanks to Leo for really putting in the time and effort to manifest all of this. So I feel very grateful to be here. Some of you might know me, some of you might not. So I just want to share a little bit right away about who I am before I dive into my topic. My topic today is, are psychedelics a pathway to justice and empathy? And so that's the topic that I'm going to dive into and really inquire with you. And I want to share more about who I am, though, before I dive into that topic. So the first thing I want to share is a little bit about my background. I grew up in a Jewish household in New York, and I grew up in a conservative Jewish synagogue. And I am very much a ritualist now and a spiritual leader and a Jewish member of clergy. I'm an ordained Kohenet, which is the priestess path of Judaism. And I do facilitate a lot of rituals, and I facilitate a lot of ceremonies. I facilitate a lot of life cycle ceremonies. And I also facilitate a lot of unusual life cycle ceremonies and things that maybe sometimes people don't always think about honoring or giving life to, meaning, like, let's say you had a divorce, or let's say you switched your jobs, or let's say you got fired. I think those things can be opportunities for ritual. And so that's some of the ritual I lead, in addition to traditional rituals like weddings and funerals. And I also do facilitate holiday ceremonies. And that's been an amazing part of my life, is being an ordained Kohenet and being a part of the Jewish clergy. And in addition to all of that, some things that you should know about me are, I'm the founder of Gender Illumination. I have my background here, so later you can look up Gender Illumination online. It's genderillumination.com. And the work that we do, we are a nonprofit. We focus on the trans and non-binary community. I'm a part of that community. I'm a non-binary person. I identify as non-binary and queer. And I started this nonprofit as a place for healing, leadership, mentorship, and ritual. And we host programs for people in the trans and non-binary community. We host a program that's a mentorship program. So people who are just coming out, just learning about themselves, striving to understand their identity, can get partnered with someone that's been out for longer, that has more information than they do around different things, like, what does it mean to come out to your parents? What does it mean to come out at work? What does it mean to get on hormones for the first time? What does it mean to change your name? And we also give ritual to that. We do name-changing ceremonies. We do ritual for your first time taking hormones. And we also offer workshops. One of our greatest workshops is Decolonizing Gender, that this amazing Indigenous friend of mine facilitates. So there's a lot that Gender Illumination does. We also offer a public speaking program to help trans and non-binary people be able to get their voices out there, which we feel is more important than ever right now during this time. And we also offer healing. And that's a component that I think psychedelic healing could eventually become a part of. Right now, our healing work on our healing ceremonies are without psychedelics, but I'm hoping in the future that that is something that we can work towards, and we are working towards, and there's new programs on the horizon. And I'm happy to get a hold of any of you that are interested in learning more about this and building with me on this. And I will put, oh, it's already in the chat. You can see genderillumination.com is in the chat. And the other piece about myself that I want to share is I'm a justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion specialist. And what that means is that I started an organization called Shine Diversity, which I'll put in the chat as well. It's shinediversity.com. And the work that we do is we work with corporations, nonprofits, places of faith, and we help with justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. We do this through trainings. We do this through consulting. We do this through policy writing. And we also do it through curriculum writing. And we've gotten to do a lot of work in Jewish community. We've actually been working with Jewish summer camps. We've been working with Jewish nonprofits. And some of the work that we've done is we've actually started one of the first ever all gender cabins at a Jewish summer camp. We are helpful in terms of creating policies that are more inclusive and welcoming to the queer and trans and non-binary community. We also facilitate anti-racism trainings. So this is the background and the work that I do. And you might be wondering, okay, so how does all of that connect into the psychedelic world? And so the past, I really believe that it is actually all connected. And psychedelic therapy really connects in with these healing components. So I've been doing a lot of healing and justice work. And for the past 3 years, which is amazing, I've gotten to be a student in a program called AWE, which is a psychedelic therapy program. And I've gotten to travel through this program, and I've gotten to take amazing classes with amazing educators. And I'm in my 3rd year of that program. So by the end, I will also be able to have my certificate in psychedelic therapy. And I'm starting my social hours of practice right now. So I'm getting this beautiful opportunity to really be in the experiential component of this. And in addition to all that, I also have a coaching practice as well. So you can find me through genderillumination.com or shinediversity.com if you're interested in one-on-one coaching. And I also do relationship coaching, confidence coaching, and just excited to know. Now that you know a little bit more about me, I would love to know a little bit more about each one of you. So if you are with me in the live version of this, unfortunately, those of you that are getting the recorded version, I won't get to know much about you. But if you're here on the live version, I would love for you to just put into the chat your name, where you are, and one thing that excites you about the topic around psychedelics and justice and empathy. So if those of you that are here can just put that in the chat. I'd love to see what people have to share for people who are here. And yeah, it's great to see some of y'all that are here and that are present with me. Thanks for being on. So can I just share a little bit more diving into this topic? One other thing that I want to share about myself is I've had the opportunity to speak at many different conferences, and I've also a published author. And there's an amazing book that I'm in called Queering Psychedelics, which is a great book to check out if you haven't checked it out. It's called Queering Psychedelics. And I'm recommending this book to you because what's great about it is there's a series of us in there. There's a lot of different wonderful educators and activists that are featured in the book. So we each have a chapter. And I wrote a chapter around psychedelic privilege, which is a coin that I termed to talk about some of the issues that are happening around privilege, who has access to psychedelics, who does not have access, what happens to those of us that are in the margins, what happens to people that are the most marginalized in society. And that's really where my work is and my focus is around giving access to people who are in the margins, people who are often not really represented well in society and not thought about. And so I'm very curious how we go about making sure that those people who need the most healing actually receive that healing. And it's great to see some of you chiming in the chat. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, people from Washington, D.C. We have people from New York and we have people from the Bay. So thank you all for being around. And those of you at home, thanks for watching this later. So I want to dive into my topic. My topic is around justice and empathy. Oh, thanks, Ray. We have someone excited about the possibilities for deep healing of ancestral trauma and vision for Olam Haba, the world to come that is possible, that can come through via plant medicines from unceded Ramaytush Ohlone land in the Bay Area. Thank you. Welcome. Great to see Sabina on here too. Thank you all so much. This is great. So, gonna dive into our topic today. And I really want to start by saying that I've been thinking a lot about 3 different Jewish holidays and how these 3 holidays connect into this topic. And so I'm going to talk about these. Oh, wait, I want to read what Leo says first. So Leo's saying, my greatest frustration is the rigid Jewish communities that define themselves in social justice work, but refuse to look at the racism and classism of the drug war and how this is a human rights issue. Yes, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate that. Yes, this is, and I think this can be a conversation that we all have together about where we imagine psychedelics can take us, and if we believe that there is a way that this can bring more justice, more empathy. And in thinking about my topic, I thought specifically about 3 Jewish holidays. And because Hanukkah is coming up, that's the first Jewish holiday that I started thinking about. And I started thinking about how Hanukkah is this liberation holiday, right? It's this holiday where we go back and we reclaim the temple, we re-sanctify the temple, we struggle and we win and we get the temple back and we light this, menorah, and it lasts for, it's like this whole idea that the oil, why do we have a menorah? It's because the oil lasts for, it's not that we lit a menorah then, we actually lit, we were lighting, I think what is the Ner Tamid, which is the light that never is supposed to never end. And they were running out of oil, right? There's this myth that they're running out of oil and that it lasts for 8 days and 8 nights. I was thinking about how psychedelic that sounds, right? Because psychedelics put you in a different reality, put you in a different understanding of time. And so something that can last for 8 days and 8 nights that at first looked like it can only last for a short amount of time is the switching up of reality. It's the switching up of what you think moves a certain way can actually move a different way. So when I think about justice and empathy, there has to be some kind of switch that happens in our brains to shift our patterns, to shift our understanding, to shift our concept. And the thing about Hanukkah that's very challenging and very difficult for me is that in this liberation, there's tons of bloodshed. It's a very complicated, very problematic story, right? It's a war. So to then be like, I'm going to celebrate this coming December, this holiday, feels confronting to me because my pathway, I took an oath of nonviolence. I took an oath of nonviolence through the Jewish community. It's called Shomeret Shalom. And I took this oath of being a nonviolent person, practicing nonviolence. And that's been a big part of my pathway and a big part of my understanding of what justice looks like. So then the concept of Hanukkah is confusing to me, right? There's both this miracle of something coming out of our understanding of time, out of our understanding of reality, something that can be beautiful and magical, can bring light in dark times, but also there's something really incredibly painful about knowing that people had to die for other people to have liberation. That to me is a very confusing concept. And in thinking about that, it brings me to another holiday, which is the holiday Passover. And I want to tell, Jewish people love storytelling. So I want to tell you a specific story from Passover, if that works for all of you. First, I'm going to just chime in and read what Amy is saying. Hi, Amy. So good to see you. She's saying she's sorry off camera right now, but she loves psychedelics can help with healing and liberation. Yes. So I want to share a Jewish story. I want to do some Jewish storytelling for you right now. Y'all down for that? A little bit of Jewish storytelling? Cool. So this is a story. This takes place a long, 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 long time ago. Many, 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 many generations ago. So long ago, we will not know if this happened or did not happen. But a long, long time ago, the Israelites were slaves in Egypt. And they were struggling to leave this narrow place. Just when the Pharaoh had said, go, after the 10 plagues, after so much atrocities that happened to the Egyptian people that the Pharaoh finally said, go, go. And the Israelites left and fled and started running. And behind them, all of a sudden, comes the Egyptian army with their horses, and they're running after them because the Pharaoh had thought to himself, I made a mistake. I want the slaves back. And he sends his army after the Israelites, and the Israelites are running. And they come to the Red Sea. And in front of them is the Red Sea. And behind them is the army. And they're thinking, this is surely the end of us. There's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to turn. There's nowhere to run. There's nowhere to hide. And everybody is afraid and everybody is scared. And Moses doesn't know what to do. He's praying. He's looking at God. Moses is saying, please help me figure out what to do so that I could save my people. And at that moment, this person named Nachshon, this person that not everybody knew, average person, regular person, hadn't been at the forefront, wasn't a leader like Miriam and Moses and Aaron, just an average person, realized that they had to be brave and trust the universe and everything in it, and just take a step forward and believe that something would change, that reality would somehow shift. And so Nachshon took that first step. And that first step is the motivation for why the universe decides that the sea can split. And then Moses lifts up his hands, and in that moment, the sea splits open and the people run forward. And as they run forward, the walls of the water have lifted up. And on one side, they can see all of the ancestors, all of the generations that have come before them, all of the people that have been there before them. And on the other side, they can see all of the future generations, all of the people to come, all of the life that will happen after them. And they keep moving through, seeing all of this, and they make it to the other side. And Miriam brings out her timbrels and her instruments, because Miriam the whole time believed in liberation, and she believed that it was possible to be free. And she believed so much that she brought these instruments, even though other people told her, why are you bothering to bring those instruments? She knew that music was important, that it was an important piece of life and art, and that you need art and music to have hope. And so she started playing a song, and everybody started dancing with joy at their liberation. And Leo is adding how important music is. And this story to me is also a psychedelic story. Because oftentimes on psychedelics, you can have experiences where you channel in and where you connect to your ancestors. If you've ever felt that you've had an experience on psychedelics, or an experience where you're meditating, or an experience where you've been praying, or an experience where you've gotten to connect with your ancestors, feel free to put that into the chat so that that's present here too. To me, this story, there's something about it, again, where it's like you're switching up your reality. You're switching up your understanding of what's possible. You're taking a huge risk and stepping into what looks like an impossible situation, and it's opening up for you and giving you that space so that instead of it just being narrow, there's a widening, and you're able to come through and come to the other side. For anyone that's ever had a challenging psychedelic journey, there's a lot in there too, right? The idea that you have to go through it to come to the other side. The thing about this story, though, that I find once again really challenging and difficult is that at the end of this story, the Egyptians are swallowed by the sea. That's what happens next, right? So people are singing and dancing on the other side in the joy of their liberation. But at the same time, another group of people are getting swallowed. And you have to imagine potentially that some of those people in the army might not want to be there. They might also be forced to be there by Pharaoh. We don't know their stories. We don't know why they're in the military. I think about a lot of people in different militaries throughout the world right now, and some people are there because of drafts or because of economic needs, and maybe they didn't make those choices. Maybe they don't want to be there. Maybe they don't want to be a part of that violence. So there's something that is confusing to me in this, something that challenges me in this, something where you're like, wow, this beautiful, epic, psychedelic thing happens. They're going through and they're seeing their ancestors and they're seeing the future generations. They get to the other side and they're celebrating. And once again, just like in the Hanukkah story, there's this issue where somebody else is suffering for the liberation. Another group of people are literally getting drowned or literally dying. How does that work? What is this about? How does that connect to justice and empathy? This is what I'm wrestling with. This is what I'm struggling with. And I think, by the way, the definition of being Jewish, literally, a part of this is that you have to struggle, right? You have to wrestle. There's the whole story with Jacob and the angel. He gets renamed Israel because he's struggling. He's wrestling with God. He's literally struggling and wrestling. So this is what I'm doing. I'm literally struggling and wrestling with our text. I'm literally struggling and wrestling with these concepts. I'm struggling and wrestling with the idea of why should one people have to suffer for another people to have their liberation? And so the final story, the final holiday that I want to think about in all of this and bring in, and by the way, I think there's many different holidays that you could bring in. I just chose 3 for the sake of the 1 hour. But the final one that I want to bring in is Purim. And Purim is my ultimate favorite holiday. I love this holiday so much. I love the theater of it. I love the opportunity of it. I love the way we dress up. I love the storytelling element of it. I think it's the most amazing holiday. I also love that it's an opportunity to really shift things and really turn things on their head. We are commanded to get so inebriated that we cannot tell the difference between good and evil, that we cannot tell the difference between Mordecai and Haman. That is incredibly powerful. That is also, again, the most psychedelic thing I could think of. You're literally being encouraged to take a substance to alter your mind so that you don't know the difference between good or evil, so that you can't tell. And to me, there's something about psychedelics that helps you enter a world of all oneness. And I don't think that's just psychedelics. I think you could get there in many different ways. I think you could get there through prayer. I think you could get there through meditation. I think you could get there through silence. But it's an altered state that allows you to feel one with everything, not just other human beings, but plants, animals, rocks, literally everything, the concept of all oneness. And I'm curious to hear if there's people in the chat that want to share. Feel free to type in if you've ever had an experience where you felt all one and what that has felt like for you. This feeling of all oneness, when I map that onto the Purim story, when I think about not being able to tell the difference, being so inebriated that you can't tell the difference between good and evil, the mapping there to me is what's happening internally for you. Where in yourself can you not tell the difference between good and evil? Where in yourself can you not tell the difference between the version of you that is Mordecai and the version of you that is Haman? So all of these thoughts around these different holidays is really my way of trying to map out this question of, can psychedelics be a pathway to justice and empathy? Can this medicine, can this healing, can we get there? And there's no way for me to come here to an all things Jewish moment, a 24-hour all things Jewish experience, and not be thinking about what's happening in Palestine and Israel right now. There's just no way, especially when my topic is justice and empathy. And the pain and the devastation and the mourning that I've been feeling, I imagine a lot of you have been feeling this way too. And before I dive deeper into that pain, I just want to take a minute to read what's coming up in the chat. Leo's sharing any thoughts on spiritual class, like the priestly class, and any thoughts on scripture being captured in time by men and the influence of Roman oppression, etc., and the disengagement from the witchery or astrology or the ownership of folk magic history and Jewish history. Yeah, do you see a role for feminism in leading the psychedelic movement? How would you change equity in the field? Yes. Okay. Oh my gosh, I 100% want to go into this question. First, I'm gonna I want to share a little bit more about where I'm at in terms of mourning, because I'm just like deep in that role right now. And then I will definitely pick up this question, Leo, because I think it's incredibly important. I feel like a lot of us are in mourning. I think what we're witnessing right now, what we're experiencing right now, and the trauma that's happening. And there might be people watching this, and there might be people on this call that are in Gaza right now, that are in Israel right now. Right? So this is real. This is not abstract. And for me, it's not abstract. I have friends that live in Gaza. I have friends that live in Israel. It's very much not abstract. And it's very much, I am very deeply concerned for real people that I know. And it's unimaginable what is happening. And I feel like what's intense for me is I want to share what happened on October 7th. So on October 7th, for me, as everything was happening, friends started calling me. And the first friends that called me, very first friends that called me, I thought this was very interesting, were people that go to festivals. And they called me to say, I go to festivals. I'm watching people at a festival get killed. I go to festivals. That could be me. I connect to those people because I go to festivals. I go to Burning Man. I go to music festivals. Those people could be me. That was the phone calls that I got coming in. Friends that go to festivals that were seeing this and witnessing this and connecting in that way. And then the next group of people that called me were Jewish people that said, I feel like this could be happening to me. I relate to this. I'm scared. I'm worried. I'm thinking about anti-Semitism. I'm in fear. I'm seeing this and I'm connecting to this because I am Jewish. Those were the two groups of people that called me on October 7th. And I thought there was something very interesting about that for people to feel empathy, they needed to feel like those people were similar to them. They needed to feel some kind of connection, maybe because they do the same thing, because they're the same religion, maybe because those people look like them. And then when Israel started dropping bombs on Gaza and thousands of people are getting killed, other people started calling me. I got phone calls from friends that said, I'm very concerned that people are saying this is in my name as a Jewish person, and I don't want this to be in my name. I don't consent to this. I don't think this is okay. I had my Palestinian friends start calling me, saying, this is me. This is me. These are my family members. These are my people. This is me. And I thought to myself, what is it about myself that I so deeply feel that my people are people in Gaza, that my people are people in Israel, that my people are people of all backgrounds, all races, all religions, all genders? What is it about me that I feel this way? And how can I give that over to other people? How can I give this deep feeling of love and empathy and justice that connects me to everyone, that has me standing up for justice, because I don't want to see anybody getting killed. I don't want to see any of this violence. I don't think any of this violence is necessary. I don't think that our liberation has to be at the suffering of another people. I believe there has to be a different way, right? There has to be a different way. Can we shift our reality? Can we change our understanding of what's possible? Can we take that first step into the Red Sea with all of that fear and experience something different? Is it possible to respond to violence and trauma with something other than violence and trauma? So this is what I've been sitting with and wrestling with and wondering about, is how do we create more empathy? What is the possibility for creating more empathy, especially at this time? And also, how do we understand that this is acute? This is happening right now. There's real trauma right now, right? So what are our possibilities? What's on the horizon? What are we capable of, especially this movement? This is a Jewish psychedelic movement. What is our role at this time? And then also, as I dig deeper, what is our role at this time everywhere? Because if what I'm saying is that I really want everybody to see themselves, to have this experiment of seeing yourself in the other, for Jewish people to be like, I see people in Gaza and those are my people. What would that feel like? What would that be like? How would we be moving differently? But then it becomes bigger in my mind, right? It's like, how come when there was violence in Ukraine, the same people, but there's still violence in Ukraine, how come those same people that called me on October 7th didn't call me then? How come when there's violence in the Congo, those people that called me then didn't call me at that time, right? Like, why is it that certain things we feel more connected to? I was thinking about how on November 20th, which is the Trans Day of Remembrance, I went to the Trans Day of Remembrance in San Francisco. I went to City Hall. We marched from City Hall to the LGBTQ Center. And in that march, I looked around, and the vast majority of people in that march were people that are part of the trans and non-binary community. There was like a couple of allies, but it just wasn't a lot. I didn't see a lot of people that weren't part of the community. And when we got to the LGBTQ Center, we did this beautiful candlelight vigil, and we had speakers and we had music, and it was very powerful. But I noticed the vast majority of people there were people that are part of the trans and non-binary community. And I thought to myself, this also connects with a lack of empathy and a lack of a sense of justice, right? Because if everybody felt connected, then lots of people from lots of backgrounds would be there, right? And I remember, when Black Lives Matter first started, a lot of people were like, a lot of non-Black people were asking me, am I supposed to be, am I part of this? Do I step in for this? Do I show up at the protest? And to me, the answer was an obvious, resounding yes. It was like, we need everybody. This is actually, racism is not going to end unless everybody is a part of the ending of it, unless we all reimagine and re-understand and work together. It's not going to happen. But a lot of people didn't get it at first. A lot of people were like, well, if that's not my community, do I step in? If I'm not connected to people in Gaza, do I have a stake in this? If I'm not connected to people in Israel, do I get to talk about this? It's like, well, there's many reasons why you get to talk about it, right? There's many reasons, but I'm curious about this piece around the empathy. I'm curious about what does it look like to get people to really experience, not just to think, to really viscerally feel it. Because in the times that I felt the most viscerally at one with everything, it's very clear to me that peace would happen if that was the feeling that that was just everywhere. So I want to take a minute and just read some of the comments that I see that are coming in. John is saying, not being able to tell the difference between good and evil seems like an invitation to own the good and evil that both live in me and withdraw my projections of pure evil onto others. And Ray is giving grats and gratitude. I really appreciate what you just brought in, John, right? That you're saying that it's an opportunity to look in on yourself. What is what lives inside of you, right? And there's a piece of me that, in thinking about all of this pain and all of this suffering, where I am right now is a curiosity around what are the methods that can shift this. And I recently had a very beautiful and very powerful experience of being in silence for 14 days. And in that silence, which, by the way, I'm a very talkative person. I'm an extreme extrovert. And I think it's cultural that I'm very talkative. I feel like it's part of my Jewish culture, part of my New York Jewish culture is to be talkative. So to sit for 14 days was a tremendously different experience. And in that experience, I was really getting to experience what is it like to both be the person going through the Red Sea, to be the person getting swallowed by the Red Sea, to be the ancestors in the Red Sea, to be the future generations in the Red Sea, and to be the Red Sea itself. And if we're all of these things at one time, if we really are all of these things, what does that mean? How does reality shift? If it's possible for something that should only last one day to last 8 days, then what else is possible? And how do we get there in our minds? How do we get that shift to happen? And right now, when I see people in the US, their response and their reaction to what's happening in Gaza and what's happening in Israel, I see a lot of divide. I actually don't see a lot of people coming together, right? I see a lot of fear. I see a lot of division happening. I see a lot of confusion happening. And I even see a lack of empathy within each other. And the extreme version of that is opening the news to see that in Vermont, that 3 Palestinian students were shot in Vermont because they were walking with a keffiyeh. That is the extreme of polarization, right? The extreme of like where hatred can lead. And so I want to know, is it possible for these medicines to bring us to a place of empathy where it wouldn't just be the festival goer calling me? It wouldn't just be someone who's Jewish calling me. It wouldn't just be that when people are dying in Gaza, only my Palestinian friends are calling me. That everybody would be like, this is all of us. We are all one. This is happening to all of us. We're connected to all of us. Our empathy is so deep that we literally can feel each other viscerally, connect to each other, and want the best for each other. What's possible with that? I'm curious to hear in the chat if people want to add what they think is possible, or maybe from personal experiences that they've had, what they think is possible around opening up to pathways of empathy and pathways to justice. And as we do that, as people share, I'm going to both answer Leo's question, and I also want to bring in this very important piece, which is that set and setting is, as we all know, is very, very important. Set and setting is both, when you go into a journey, what is your mindset, right? And what is the actual setting around you? What is the environment? And the third piece that I would add that's very important to that is, what's the integration plan? Because I think if this is going to be, if medicines are going to be used as a pathway to justice and empathy, the set and setting and the integration is a crucial part of this. I don't think that if I just took some medicine right now of any kind, that I would, I mean, I think some empathy might happen organically. I think some justice might happen. I think there might be some moments in my head where I do feel all one, or I might get expansive. I think that is possible, but I don't know for sure, right? I also think that it's something around the set and the setting and the integration that is very important. Also, because there has to be a way to process. If I come out with this big feeling of all one, then there's no place to process and there's no place to put that, and I come back into a very shattered world, I don't know how it's going to actually shift or change things or work, right? Which I think part of what's happening is that we don't have enough integration in general in the world. I think part of the reason why there's so much trauma is that there's not enough time in between experiences to fully integrate those experiences, whether they're medicinal experiences, meditation experiences, Jewish ritual experiences, any form of experience, even going on a big trip with your friend. I think we move very quickly in society. I feel like a lot of times it's like, okay, well, we just did this thing, now we have to get back to work. Or we just did this thing and now it's back to school and now it's back to the 9 to 5. There's no, reprocessing or re-understanding. If we want to shift our realities, there has to be this integration piece. There has to be this time where it becomes relevant, where we figure out how to move it, how to make it make sense in our bodies, how to have an embodied experience. What's the somatic experience that's happening? So to me, it's not just about, can I go be a part of a ceremony? Is that going to help me have empathy and justice? It might, but it also might not. What is the structure of that ceremony? How is that ceremony being led? What's the literal environment around you? What's your mental state when you went into that experience? All of that will play out. So I don't think, I've heard a lot of people jokingly have these ideas of like, oh, if we just dosed everybody in the world, we'd have instant justice. And I don't actually think that's true. I mean, I wish it was true. I wish there was some magical pill that everybody could take, some magical mushroom that everybody could take that would make us all have empathy and justice and love for each other, and we would enter this state of euphoria and come out on the other side where there's no more violence. I wish that's how it worked. I don't actually think that's how it works. I think that there has to be a component around the integration, and there has to be a component around the set and setting that shifts the path into one of justice and empathy. I don't just think that if you like started handing this out to world leaders that are committing war crimes and violence, that they would magically shift and change. I actually think there has to be a component of integration. And I'm curious what other people think too. I'm going to look in and see on the chat. Okay, so I'm going to answer some of the questions because now we have 2 questions on the table. The second question is, I'd be curious to hear about your opinion about non-Jewish doing damage as healers to Jews in psychedelic space. If you have opinions about psychedelic care integration, integrating similar groups, caring for others from that group because they have lived knowledge. Okay, awesome. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to answer Leo's first question, and feel free also, just everybody who's on right now, feel free to just start chiming in with questions on the chat, and feel free to just start. I'm very curious to hear other people's thoughts too, right? Because this is, to me, again, a wrestling, right? I'm wrestling with the whole concept of what is going to help us get more justice and empathy. What are the pathways? What do you all think? Are psychedelics a pathway to empathy and justice? So we're answering this question in the chat. You're also able to ask me any question you want. And I'm going to jump into the first question that Leo asked me, which I'm going to read it again so we're all on the same page. So any thoughts on spiritual class, like this priestly class, and any thoughts on scripture being captured in time by men and the influence of Roman oppression, etc., and the disengagement from the witchery or astrology or the ownership of folk magic history in Jewish history? Do you see a role for feminists in leading the psychedelic movement? How would you change equity in the field? Yes, I love this question. So first of all, just going all the way back in time to like the first and second temple, there was this story that I used to always hear as a young person. This is a story they told me in Hebrew school. This is a story of how the priest would tie a rope to his ankle and go into the Holy of Holies by the priest's self and be on that journey with this rope attached to them, because there was this chance that like they might not come back out and someone might need to pull them back out. And as a kid, I always thought there was something really strange about that. Like, if you're in not a non-altered state, like why would you need a rope to pull you back out, right? But if you're on a deep dive journey, you might need someone to pull you out, right? If this is a psychedelic journey that the priest is going on, a deep journey to meet the Holy of Holies, to see beyond the veil, that's a different story than if this person is just, having a conversation or praying with God, right? How deep of an altered state did the priest get to go into? So that's one thing that I think about in terms of psychedelics and Judaism, like what's there, and what I love about Judaism is there's stories, and then there's always stories underneath the stories. And I appreciate this question about priestly class, and I appreciate this question about, the role of feminism, because I believe there's always been multiple stories happening at one time. So a lot of people, when I said I became a Jewish priestess, they didn't even understand what they meant. They were like, I didn't even know that was a thing, that there's a Jewish priestess track. And the reality is that track has been running parallel, right? So after the destruction of the first and second temple, Judaism shifted. A major shift happened in Judaism. It became people of the book rather than a people of a place, right? It used to be that all these rituals are somatic rituals in a way. You're bringing animals to come to the temple in a ritual. You're doing a sacrifice. It's, you're bringing your harvest to the temple in a sacrifice. That is a very different thing than becoming a people in a diaspora, a people that rely on certain laws to bind them together, a people of the book. It's like You went from an embodied people that are connecting deeply into into nature, into a people that are more connecting into, a book, a little bit more legal of an aspect of things. So there was a major shift in how people consider themselves as Jewish. I like to think that if our ancestors from 3,000 years ago saw us right now, they'd be like, I don't even know, that doesn't even look like the Judaism that they were practicing, right? So, and maybe 3,000 years from now, whoever defines themselves as Jewish will look incredibly different from what I'm doing right now. And so the priestess path was always happening at the same time. Judaism became an incredibly patriarchal religion, which is very unfortunate, right? It became this religion that did squash a lot of divine feminine energy. It did squash a lot of the witchery that you're talking about, a lot of the magic that you're talking about. That got pushed underground. It didn't disappear, right? When I talk about this priestess track happening parallel, that magic didn't disappear. It just became a lot more underground. And the idea that I'm out and proud as a priestess is that part is new, but the 3-year training program that I was in, that we were studying ancient Judaism, right? We were doing a lot of pre-rabbinical study of Judaism. So, a lot of people would say to me, oh, is becoming a priestess like a new age experience? But I'm like, no, actually, it's a very ancient experience. It's just that this was an underground experience that nobody talked about. And now, in these modern times, we finally feel safe to be out, which, by the way, maps on very well to a queer experience, right? We've been here. Queer Jews have been here this whole time. But we had to be underground as well. We weren't welcomed. We weren't, even when I was a kid, I was not welcomed as a queer Jew. That was not a thing. My synagogue was not having space for that when I was a child. Very different now. There's a lot of synagogues now that are like, yes, we are here. We welcome LGBTQ people. We, are celebrating gay and lesbian weddings, right? It's all of a sudden there's been a major shift, but that wasn't my reality just not even that long ago, right? So things are shifting, things are changing. There's ways that things that were underground that are now allowed to come out, literally come out of the closet, literally be out. There's more spaces for the Jewish magic, but I don't think we're fully through that experience of being underground, especially when we're talking about this Jewish psychedelic movement that we're a part of. I don't think that's above ground fully yet for lots of reasons. Even when you think about legality, lots of reasons. I don't think mainstream Judaism is welcoming of this, talking about this, accepting this, right? So we're running an underground path right now. There's a parallel path right now happening. So when we talk about, when you're asking what's the role of feminism in this movement and feminists in this movement, to me, this is where anything that's in the underground, that's like, there's a connection there. There's a connection with queerness and psychedelics. There's a connection with feminism and psychedelics, right? Because if you've been, on the margins and your experience has not been centered, you're not the dominant culture. When I say on the margins, I mean people that are not living dominant culture, right? In the US, we live in a very Christian dominant culture. We live in a very white dominant culture, a very straight dominant culture. That's what you see in the media. That's what's given to you as what's acceptable. People are, that's what you're told you're supposed to fit into these categories. And when you don't, you're on the margins, right? And when you're marginalized, oftentimes you also receive less resources. You receive less healthcare. You receive less adequate healthcare. You receive less opportunities for jobs and schools and all of that, right? So there's an actual system of oppression that exists too in an institutional way. So what we're talking about when I say, can we create more justice and empathy? I'm also talking about how do you break through a system of oppression? A system of oppression that's affecting all of us. It's war and violence. And it's also, what is the systems of racism, sexism, homophobia? What are those systems and how are they playing out in our bodies and how we experience each other? And when I say, can we break through and can we see the other as ourselves? That's a very powerful concept. And also when I say, can you see internally what is the good and what is the evil internally and mix it up so you can't tell the difference? It's like, there's something very powerful in that. There's something powerful about flipping a switch, changing our reality. So yes, I do think that there is a very strong place for a feminist movement inside of the psychedelic movement. And I do think we have to shift the pieces of Judaism that are steeped in patriarchy, that it is important to create that shift if we want a culture and a future that has more justice and has more empathy. There has to be a way to make space for people that have been on the margins. There has to be a way to, what does it look like to shift? To be like, if you've been spending all the time in the center, can you shift and give space for people who have been on the margins to come into the center? And I also want to say there's amazing gifts when you're on the margins. Amazing gifts. I've had amazing gifts in my priestess path. I've had amazing gifts as a queer person, as a non-binary person. There's something very powerful when you're not in a dominant culture that you get to experience and that you get to be part of. So I actually think those people that have been holding center, there's a lot of power that can happen if they stepped back and gave other people the space. Right? There's a play there that can happen, a shifting of reality that can happen. So we got about 10 more minutes. So I want to look at some of the other questions that are coming in as well. And I want to name, this is a really good time. If you have questions, if you have thoughts, if you have topics that you want to make sure that I cover, since I'm in the final 10 minutes, please feel free to put them in the chat. Also, if you just have your own thoughts around psychedelics in terms of, can they help with justice? Can they help with empathy? Please put that in the chat. So I'm going to read Leo's other comment, which is, if Jews were meant to repair this rip in the universe, do you feel like proselytizing needs to be brought back? If we have a job here, JLB, here, and originally the religion grew by proselytizing, and some Jews are suggesting we bring it back. And as far as I can research, it seems we only stopped proselytizing because of Roman prosecution, because our numbers are dwindling, and the only demographic growing is the most conservative element and the population least likely to educate women. Like, just curious if you see a purpose in keeping the population growing with the premise that there is work to do. And if you think we should influence how the population grows or sustains. Okay, so before I answer that question, I just want to go back because there was one other question that I didn't get to answer, and I want to make sure we're going in order. The other question that was asked of me was, I'd be curious to hear about your opinion about non-Jews doing damage as healers to Jews in psychedelic spaces. If you have opinions about psychedelic care integrating similar groups, caring for others from that group because they have lived knowledge. So this is a really great question. So in my dream vision of a society, we would be able to all see each other and really deeply empathetically feel for each other and see each other in ourselves. We are not there yet. That is not where we are right now at all, by any means. So when asked the question, do I see a place for healers of specific backgrounds working with those people of their backgrounds? I do think there's a place for that right now, yes. Because what I'm noticing when I talk about, I talk a lot about psychedelic privilege. It's the term that I coined to talk about what's happening around privilege and how that affects the psychedelic movement. When I talk about this, I talk a lot about access and who has access. Well, part of having access is there's a mistrust in the medical system for a reason. I'm just going to give an example from the LGBTQ community, which is that LGBTQ community has been directly harmed by people that called themselves therapists, right? It used to be in the DSM that being gay was in the DSM, right? It was considered a mental illness. So that in itself is incredibly harmful to tell people that their sexuality is a mental illness, right? So of course, there's a lack of trust. Of course, LGBTQ people have a lack of trust in the medical system, have a lack of trust amongst therapists, right? So yes, there might be real fear that a queer person has if they were going to go to a straight therapist, especially in a psychedelic setting. One of the things I didn't get to mention in my introduction about who I am is that I'm the co-founder of Queerdom, which is the first ever queer-centered psychedelic harm reduction program. And the reason that I helped found this program and helped found what this is, which is that Queerdom goes to events like Burning Man. We also go to parties, and we create a safe space for people having challenging psychedelic journeys. We sit with people. We make sure that they're taken care of. We make sure that anyone who's having a challenging psychedelic journey, and also sometimes it's not even about psychedelics, sometimes it's just a challenging emotional journey, we make sure that those people have a place where they are safe, where they're not going to be harmed, where we're going to make sure that they're okay until things shift, right? So why did I start that? I started that because I was doing a workshop that I facilitate called Drugs, the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I facilitate a lot of workshops, and this is one of them that I created. And the concept of this workshop, the drugs, the good and the bad, and the ugly, was I wanted to create spaces where we could talk about all of it. Talk about the way there's drug use, misuse in marginalized communities, talk about addiction, talk about the ways that people are trying to heal themselves, but then are getting hurt in those processes. I wanted a space to talk about the power and the magic and the deep healing that can happen on psychedelics. And I wanted a space to talk about all of it. And at the end of every one of those workshops, I would ask people, what is the call to action? What do you want to see? And in every workshop, no matter where I taught this workshop, and I was teaching this workshop all across the country, and everywhere that I was teaching this workshop, the same thing, people asked for the same thing, which is they said they wanted a specific queer psychedelic harm reduction. And harm reduction already exists, right? Like Zendos existed for a very long time. I want to give them so much gratitude. They really helped Queerdom get started. They, literally showed us how to do it. They showed us the ropes. They gave us everything that they had already worked on, right? It was an incredible collaboration. You don't need to reinvent the wheel, right? Like we just wanted to add something to the wheel. We wanted to say, when you come into this space, there will for sure be a queer person holding the space so that if you're queer, you have a safe space to go. And so when you ask this question of, is there a need to have people of the same background be the healers? Sometimes there really is, because that lack of trust is there for a reason, right? Like the lack of trust that the queer community has in a medicalized therapeutic system makes sense. That fear is very real. So having queer and trans and non-binary therapists is incredibly important. So as we push towards a future where we all can see each other in ourselves, maybe there will be a day where it won't matter who your healer is. But right now it does matter. I think it's valid when a person of color says, I want a person of color healer. I need a person of color therapist. I don't think a white person is going to be able to hold me in this moment. Because there's truth in that. Because right now we are still broken. We are not in the repair. We have not made the cocoon. We have not gotten there yet. And until we get there, I think it's very valid for marginalized people to say, I need people the same background as me to be my healers. And we need to create spaces where there's more opportunity and more access for people who are marginalized, trans, non-binary, BIPOC, disabled people to have access to get into psychedelic therapy programs, right? To be able to be trained so that we have professional healers and therapists. And also to say there's been indigenous ceremonial leaders that go way past, that have existed way before therapy even became a concept, right? So even that has sometimes been ignored in this movement, right? That there's already folks doing this work and been doing this work, and there's many different ways to do this work, and there's many different ways to be a healer. So I do think that it's valid when people say that they need people of the same background. It's like both realities can be happening at the same time. You can push for both things at the same time. You can be pushing for a world in which we all see each other and we have deep empathy and we have deep justice. And simultaneously, you can say, we're not there yet. So I think it's valid and just, and we should uplift the margins and make sure that there's healers for people. Oh gosh, we only have 2 minutes left and there's so much coming in. Okay, so I'm going to read the questions that are here. Oh, whoa, there's so many questions now. Okay. Thoughts about moving forward with Israel and Gaza now? Microaggressions during ceremony. I feel we are mostly responding from trauma now, and that it's hard to watch and also understandable. It would be great if we could take space to process trauma without feeling Israel has to defend its right to exist, but I don't see that space is possible since now we are at war. This is what Amy's saying. Nikki is saying, in consideration of our oneness, where do you think the mechanisms created energy put forth to assist justice or harm reduction not become the cause of the separation if it is created around the wound? These are beautiful questions, and I only am allowed to speak for 1 more minute. So I'm glad that I read the questions so that they're at least in the sphere. I don't know in 1 minute that I'll be able to answer all these questions. But what I will say is that my hope, I want to end with a hope and a prayer. So my hope and my prayer is that we are able to find deep pathways of justice and empathy, that we're able to experience and really experiment with seeing the other as ourselves, so that this question around existence, our fear of existence, Jewish people have a lot of fear of existence. I think if we really saw each other as all one, if you really get to that place of being the Red Sea, the ancestors, the generations to come, the Egyptians getting swallowed, the Israelites coming across the sea, if you are all of those things at one time, you don't have this fear of existence anymore. Existence is way bigger than what we understand. I'm going to leave you with that thought, that existence is way bigger than we understand. I believe that empathy is possible. I believe justice is possible. I'm here with you to find out if psychedelics can help us on that journey. I really think, again, I want to end on the point that I think integration is everything, and that this is a massive journey that we're all on together, and that I'm praying for an end to violence. I'm praying for the bombs to stop on Gaza. I'm praying for the hostages to be brought home, and all of the truths can happen at one time, right? So I want there to be healing for people on the margins as we move in this pathway towards justice. May we all figure out that we are really all one. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much. That was amazing. Just thank you so much. You're always welcome to follow up. I think you put some of your information in the chat, maybe not, but feel free to put anything you want so people can connect with you.
I'll put it in the chat right now. The best websites to find me are genderillumination.com and shinediversity.com. Please find me there. I would love to work with you all. I do one-on-one coaching. I also teach workshops professionally, and I teach trainings, and I do justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion curriculum. And I also do self-love and self-confidence coaching.
Awesome. So our next moderator is Kimberly. We're in the last 2 hours, guys. I know some of us are, kind of fragile after lack of sleep and that kind of thing. It's also an emotional journey. There was a person who moderated yesterday, and I felt very shaken up, not in a bad way, but it just was so intense that I got super drained. So, and I was already struggling with some kind of like cold or something. So here we are in the last 2 hours. So let's bring it home. And Kimberly is our next moderator. Take it away, Kimberly.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Ariel's definitely gonna be a hard act to follow. Ariel and Deb from this morning, both of you guys, amazing stories, and I really appreciated your sharing with us. I also want to thank Leo for putting this amazing event together. It's been very powerful. Just being in a room with other folks who are feeling a lot of the feels that I think many of us are feeling right now is just, it helps a lot, because this has been a really tough time for so many of the Jewish people. My daughter lost a friend at the festival. They took them a month to find her body because she was burned beyond recognition. So it was really horrifying. So it's been really tough for us. And Saturday or Shabbat morning, we also lost my retired service dog. So it's been a tough weekend. So if I start just crying spontaneously, you guys know why. She was really my heart. I'm not gonna cry. I'm okay. Anyway, so I want to kind of start, go back a little bit and share my story as a Jew. Basically, I'm a veteran of the U.S. Air Force, which I know is kind of different for Orthodox Jews. I was raised in an Orthodox home. My parents were actually Baal Shuva. Both of them raised. My mom was kind of, I would say, in between formal and conservative when she growing up. My dad was a little bit more religious, conservative. He actually went to a Hebrew day school till 8th grade and then went to public school for high school. His parents actually did keep Shabbos. My mom's parents, not as much. They made the decision together. I kind of still don't know exactly how it happened to this day, but they moved into Monsey, New York, and became very good friends with a Frum family. And from there started to take on more and more, start to keep Shabbat and become more religious. And then by the time I was born, they were pretty much observant all the time. And they've gotten more observant as they've gotten older, which I think is not unusual for some older people. I think it goes either way. I think you become less religious or more religious. Growing up, I always felt this like weird, I always had connections to the universe. Sometimes I would get like foresight and like kind of predict things before they happen, and just would see like or talk to dead people kind of thing. I always felt like a very connected, very to things above our normal understanding. And one thing I always felt in my heart very drawn to join the military. Exactly, that's the word I was looking for. But I thought for some reason, and I don't know why, somebody must have told me this that when I was a kid, was that Orthodox Jews cannot join the American military. This is totally what I thought. And as our journey continued, around the age of 34, we decided to move to Israel. And we had a newborn son and 3 older kids. So we moved to Israel with 4 kids. We moved to a kibbutz called Shluchot. And it was not the most nice, it was not the nicest experience. Honestly, the people on the kibbutz didn't treat us that nicely. But we were there for a few months and decided to go meet some friends in Tel Aviv. So we took a bus from Shluchot, we stopped in Yerushalayim, and then took the bus from Jerusalem to Tel Aviv. And while we were sitting on the bus, it was packed to the gills. But they see a woman with a little baby. My son was a few months old at that point. And they said, oh, well, come take a seat, come take a seat. And they pushed me all the way to the back of the bus. And the back, I'm sure most of you guys know that the back of those buses, it's one big seat across, while the others are all 2 on each side. My husband was at the front of the bus. I'm all the way at the back of the bus. And so there's an Arab man in the very last seat next to the window. And then there was 2 empty seats. So I put my son down and then I sat next to him. Bus pulls out of the parking lot. And I noticed that the guy has sweat pouring down his face and looks very nervous. And I'm like, okay, that's strange. And then I notice he keeps putting his hand next to his chest and then taking it away and putting it there and taking it away. And he keeps looking down at my son. And then like every once in a while he would look up at me. And then he's like sweating and looking even more nervous. And suddenly he pulls out a prayer book from his bag and he starts praying and he's looking at my son. He keeps putting his hand by his chest. And I'm like, okay, this guy's going to blow up the bus. He has a bomb. So I'm like, Kim, you have to stay calm. You have to like just keep making him look at the baby. Maybe he feels guilty. Maybe he has his own son at home. For whatever reason, he's feeling guilt. He doesn't want to do this. And it's like the longest 30 minutes of my life. I think it was 30 minutes from Jerusalem to Tel Aviv. But meanwhile, the whole ride, he like keeps doing this over and over, looking at my son, putting his hand next to his chest, looking at me. And I keep pointing, like, look at the baby, look at the baby. The bus finally pulls into the parking lot in Tel Aviv. The minute it pulls in, this guy grabs his stuff, jumps over me, jumps over my son, jumps over me, pushes his way out and runs off the bus. By the time I make it up to the front and off the bus, I immediately go to the security. I tell them what happened. They look at me and they're like, yeah, your son just saved that bus. That guy was probably going to blow up the bus. So of course they go and they look for him. They couldn't find him at that point. I didn't think they would, but that was like the moment I was like, wow, that was like crazy story. My son saved the bus of people. So we get back to the kibbutz. After that, we lived there for another like year, whatever it was. And then the kibbutz comes to us and says, oh, we're going bankrupt. So we need you guys to move out. And we're like, what do you mean you need us to move out? You told us to come to Israel. You guys brought us here. We don't have plans to have our own careers, to work off the kibbutz. So we were absolutely shocked and very hurt, extremely hurt. So at that point, I said to my husband, that's it. I'm done with being an Orthodox Jew. They never treat us nicely. We've never had a good experience in the community. I'm finished. So I actually got a visa to work as a nurse midwife in New Zealand. So we come back to America, leave a lot of our stuff here, go to California, fly to New Zealand. we get to New Zealand, and the head of the Orthodox synagogue in New Zealand picks us up at the airport. And he says, "Oh, I'm going to take you guys for breakfast." And we're like, "Okay, cool." And we figured he was taking us to like a kosher restaurant because it's an Orthodox synagogue, right? And he pulls into this little bagel shop and he says, "Oh, by the way, just make sure you tell them to hold the bacon before you order anything." And we look at each other and we're like, we said we were going to give up being Orthodox. We weren't going to be kosher anymore, but it's not so easy because both of us have been kosher our entire life. Nothing you could just turn off. So we went and we met with the rabbi there, and the rabbi says, "Look, Orthodox Judaism here is not what you think it is. It's basically less than conservative, more than reform." He says, "If I were you, I'd move to Australia." So we stayed in New Zealand for about 3 weeks, and then we took a plane to Australia. Get to Australia, we meet with the Department of Immigration. They're like, "Great, we really want midwives. Wonderful. It'll take you 6 months to get your permission to work." We're like, "Well, 6 months? We don't have money to live for 6 months. Australia's very expensive. There's no way we could do this." So we spent a few weeks. We tried. We figured maybe we could do it, but it wasn't working out. We came back to the United States. We flew back to California. We actually kind of cool. We experienced New Year's twice because we flew on New Year's Day and we did New Year's Day in Australia, and then we came back and did New Year's Day in California. So that was a lot of fun. And then when we got to California, I interviewed for every nurse midwife job between California and Florida. I only wanted to be in a state that was decently warm and had decent weather. And when we got back to Florida, I just didn't find anything I like. I didn't find any communities I connected with. It was really difficult. And I happened to be online and I see Nurse Midwives Wanted. And I went and in the US Air Force, sorry. Nurse Midwives Wanted US Air Force. And I'm like, "What? There's nurse midwives in the US Air Force?" So I called the recruiter and I said to the recruiter, "I want to do this. It's very interesting, but I'm an Orthodox Jew. I don't think Orthodox Jews can be in the American military." And he goes, "Of course they can. We have tons of Orthodox Jews." And I was like, "What? No way." So he gets a rabbi to call me and a chaplain, and the chaplain calls me. We have a beautiful conversation. And then he has an Orthodox Jewish doctor call me, and we had, again, beautiful conversation. And I said to my husband, I said, "I think I'm going to do this. I think I'm going to join the Air Force." And he says, "Yeah, why not? Go for it." So I said, "But we have to tell our parents. They're going to freak out. They're going to think we're crazy. We already went to Israel, and then we went to New Zealand and Australia. They're just going to think we're nuts." He's like, "I don't care. Let's just do it." So I applied, went through all the paperwork and everything. And then we went and told our parents, and they loved the idea. They thought it was a fantastic idea. So shockingly, we were really shocked about that. So then it took so you think that you join the military and you're in the next day, but that's not how it works. It actually took a year because being a medical professional, they have to vet you, and there's all kinds of vetting you have to do because I was going to have top secret clearance because as a nurse midwife, you're taking care of generals, you're taking care of colonels, you're taking care of all these different people who might come on your table, and who knows what secrets they're going to tell you, so you have to have top secret clearance. So finally, after a year, I got in. I found the military more accepting of my being Jewish than anywhere I've ever been in my life. Not only did they bend over backwards to help me and accommodate me. So, like, for example, during the winter, when Shabbos starts early, I said to my commander, being a religious Jew, we don't drive on Shabbos. What can I do to get home before sundown? Because at that point, I would leave the base at like 4:30, but I wouldn't get home till 5, and Shabbos started about 4:30. So my commander says, "No problem, I've got this. I'm going to make it so that everybody can come in an hour early for Christmas shopping. And if you come in an hour early, you can leave an hour early." So we were able to, because he couldn't do it just for me, because that wouldn't be right. It had to be for everyone. So he made it so that everyone could come in an hour early and leave an hour early. And he was amazing. He was beautiful. He was so accepting of my being Jewish. The only one time I ever encountered a little bit of anti-Semitism was my first flight leader that I had kind of misunderstood something what happened. So basically, we had a lot. So one thing I love about the military, is there's always a potluck lunch, there's always a dinner together, there's always some kind of event happening, and it usually pertains to food. So some of my friends there were asking, like, we don't understand kosher. Can you explain to us about kosher? So I was explaining to them, and I guess somebody walked by and heard the conversation, and she thought I was proselytizing. So I got in trouble. I wasn't allowed to proselytize. I'm like, I am not proselytizing. Okay. I would never, ever do that in a million years. I said, I was just literally explaining what kosher is. She asked me what kosher is. I explained what kosher is. So she's like, all right, well, just don't do it again. So that was the only time I ever experienced any type of questionable, and it wasn't even really anti-Semitism in the military. But for the most part, I found the military to be very accepting of my service. I loved it. People ask me, what did you love about it? I love the fact that when you're in the military, there's always something happening. You're not just going and doing the same job every day. I mean, I did love being a nurse midwife and a nurse practitioner. I love delivering babies. I love taking care of women, taking care of people. That's my heart, my soul. It's what I do. But I loved being able to do other things too. Like, for example, I got to help plan the Air Force Ball. That was something I never would have gotten to do in the civilian world. So that was really, really incredible. But then, unfortunately, I experienced an accident during a training exercise. I was supposed to be going to Kuwait as a nurse practitioner to take care of women over there. And we were doing a training exercise. And during the training exercise, I got injured. And I ended up needing surgery. And from the surgery, I woke up with this insane pain and my arm swelling to 5 times the normal size. My arm turned bright red, swollen like a balloon. We couldn't figure out what was going on. Ended up taking a year to finally get a diagnosis. And when I did, I was diagnosed with something called complex regional pain syndrome. And unfortunately, within 2 months of getting the diagnosis, I had an accident where I slipped and fell on black ice. And within minutes, the CRPS started to attack my leg. At that point, my commander says to me, "You haven't worked in a year," because unfortunately, I delivered one baby after my accident, and it went well, thank God, nothing happened, but my arm was so weak I could barely do the delivery, and I still wasn't doing pap smears, I wasn't doing, women's health exams. I couldn't work, and they actually kept me for a year not working, which is one nice thing about the military. They do really try and take care of their people. At least where I was, they really tried to take care of me. So I ended up getting retired from the military, and I ended up falling into a very extreme depression. Was very suicidal, didn't leave my house, didn't leave my bed. I couldn't put a sock on, I couldn't put a shoe on. I was dying of pain. And then a friend of mine sent me a research study about ketamine being used for CRPS. Went down a huge rabbit hole, read everything I can get my hands on, and then I started trying to find, where can I get ketamine? No one was doing infusions back then. It was not even, there was a couple places, but not too many. And the places that were doing it were charging $25,000. And I'm like, I'm not in a position to pay $25,000. And there's nothing I could do. So then that same friend sent me one of those CDC.gov website links. And she's like, look, they're going to be doing a study at Hospital for Special Surgery in Manhattan. So I immediately applied, and thankfully after 6 months got accepted into the study. And I got the real drug, not the placebo, which I knew within minutes. If anyone's had ketamine, you know within minutes whether you're getting the placebo or the real drug. And it was an incredible experience because as soon as I got the drug, my pain reduced to a 0 while I was getting it. And after 5 days in the hospital, it was reduced by 50%. But I was no longer depressed. I was no longer suicidal. And I was like, this is incredible. So the research study lasted for 10 months. And then when that was done, I'm like, well, where am I going to go for ketamine now? And thankfully, I was able to find the one provider, one of the only providers in the US who's actually taking insurance for ketamine in Clearwater, Florida. I did not have, yes, of course I had the psychedelic experiences, but they weren't because the doses for pain that you get are so high, you don't remember most of what happens. The place in Clearwater, they drug you out of your brains. You have no clue what's going on. So then I want to connect with other people that were getting ketamine because I wasn't, happy about it. I wasn't happy about the experience. It was really bothering me. So I ended up starting a Facebook group that now has over 13,000 ketamine patients in it. And it has both mental health and chronic pain patients. And I noticed the patients who were getting ketamine for mental health, had stories to share. Like they could actually tell me what happened during their infusions. And I'm like, I want that. I want to feel that because, like, even though I'm getting the pain relief, my PTSD is still really prevalent. Thankfully, I didn't have suicidal ideation anymore, but I just wasn't like feeling the healing. So I actually 2 summers ago connected with someone who said to me, "Well, why don't you come on a ketamine retreat?" And I'm like, "Ketamine retreats? Like, what the heck is that?" So I went on a ketamine retreat, and it was the most healing and powerful thing I have ever experienced. And I'm like, wow, this is what this medicine is supposed to be doing. This is what this is supposed to be like. And I was able to have such an incredible journey. A friend of mine had passed away 6 months before, and on my second ketamine journey at that retreat, he actually came and sat with me. It was really incredible. He became a dove, and he came in as a dove, and he sat on my chest, and he looked at me, and I'm like, "What is this dove?" And then he like, boom, became himself, and he's like, "Surprise," which is like him. Like that's like the type of thing he would do. He was like this perky, like amazing, wonderful person who just always made you laugh. And he just came and he sat with me and he held my hand. Sorry. That entire journey, it was really beautiful. It was really healing to see him because I didn't get to say goodbye. And that showed me that's how powerful. Oh, sorry. And the whole being in a group and being in a room with other people experiencing this medicine is so powerful. So I want to say to anyone who's getting ketamine or any medicine that you're taking, psilocybin or any of this, if you can do it in a group, just like that experience of being with others who are journeying, and then afterwards being able to share the experience with them and talk about it, and just it's so incredibly beautiful. I mean, so since that retreat, I've done four retreats since then, though number 3 kind of doesn't count because they didn't bring the medicine. It was all issue with that. But my last session is the one that really talked to me about my Judaism. I've been having a lot of conflict with my Judaism lately. Like I said, I've been raised Orthodox, always lived the Orthodox lifestyle. My husband is not as connected as I am. And he also like always felt like a lot of disconnected from Judaism, disconnected from other Jews. He was treated very badly on the kibbutz we were in, which really like hurt him and hurt his. It's not God. I don't want to say we were disconnected from God. It's more the whole having to keep Shabbos so strictly and not be able to cook or watch TV or drive or do the things that you might want to do. And are we still really supposed to be like doing the things they did millions of years, thousands of years ago, when then it was work. Then it was like to cook, you had to build a fire, you had to get your ingredients from scratch. It's not like nowadays where you just pop something in the oven, So, both of us have been feeling a lot of like, are we really doing the real thing? Like, do we have to do all these rituals? But I feel a lot of guilt when I don't do those rituals because that's how I was raised. So on my last journey, which was actually in Hawaii, we're actually doing veterans ketamine retreats in Hawaii. And if anyone's a veteran, by the way, and is interested, please reach out to me. They're majorly discounted. They're not free at this point, unfortunately, because we haven't raised enough money, but we're trying, and we hope to eventually have them to be free for all veterans. Veterans, first responders, medical professionals, anyone, who needs healing is invited to come on these retreats. Anyway, so on my Hawaii retreat, during our 3 sessions, I had an ongoing theme, and that theme was connection to the universe. Well, it's 2 themes, actually. Number 1 was that God really is a feminine energy, because in Orthodox Judaism, you're really taught that God is masculine and everything's masculine energy. And that always really bothered me, because as a nurse midwife, who are the creators of who bring life into the world as women? So how can God be this masculine energy? So the message I received over and over during my last journeys was that God is feminine, and is really a feminine energy. And I really felt embraced and held by God. And I felt like God told me that we don't need all the rituals and the trappings and all that to be loved by God and to be held by God. And that, like, if I'm feeling in my heart that, like, I want to go be in nature, so I want to drive to the beach on Shabbos, that he's not or she's not going to strike me down and kill me because of that. And that I'll still go to heaven, you know. So I really felt like that really brought me that more connectedness to God being in those journeys. I also felt that, there's a lot of paganism in Hawaii and Hawaiian culture, and the Hawaiian people really believe in different gods and things like that. And the other message I really received during those journeys was that, you don't have to, like, be scared of those things, because, like, they always kind of scared me. And we could be open to, like, understanding other people, and that doesn't mean we're going to worship their gods and things like that, and that God's okay with that. He's not going to, like, again, strike us down and kill us. And that we all have to accept her in our own way, and that's okay. And if you believe that God's male, that's okay. I'm not going to judge you, and don't judge me. And that's the important thing, that we all need to be open with one another. And the other important message that I really received was the oneness of, how we're all connected in the universe. And, all human beings, the most important thing is kindness and caring. And, that's really, how the universe is made. And what God wants more than anything else is for us to be kind and caring to one another, and to stop the hatred and stop the division. And I know October 7th has changed us so much. And I think that one of the things that was going on in the world was there was so much division. And I sometimes think that October 7th has been a wake-up call, especially for the Jewish people. I see more Jewish friends and more Jewish unity coming out since that date than there has been, I think, in many years. I mean, I've had friends from all over the world who've reached out to me and said, we're all in this together, and we need to stand up for one another, and we need to be a united front. And not just Jewish friends. I've had tons of non-Jewish friends who've reached out, and it's really been a coming together of communities. So that's, like, been an absolutely incredible experience for me. So I definitely think that's how psychedelic medicine has brought me closer to God, and us closer to each other as well. And if anyone wants to answer, ask any questions, let me look in the chat. All right, no questions. Does anyone else want to say anything, or, open it up? If everyone, let's unmute. Let's have everyone unmute and, share a little bit with each other, because I would like that. I would like to hear from some of you guys. Hi, Sabina.
Hello.
Do you want to share a little bit?
I love you.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
It's in and out.
Can you hear me?
It's in and out.
Can you hear me? Okay.
That's better.
Can you hear me better?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I'm in a corner. It's the first time that I'm on this platform, and I'm very happy to be here. And I connected to everything you said. I feel everything you said, from what you said about your dog and your friends in Israel. You can hear by my accent, I grew up in Israel, even though I'm here for like almost 40 years. I guess this accent will be part of me forever. Even though I was born in Argentina, even.
Oh.
The one the Wandering Jew. So what I want to say is that I never did, I didn't have yet an experience, a psychedelic experience. I'm waiting to be ready. I was introduced to it like maybe 3, even maybe 4 years ago. I think I'm kind of right now to go in there. I don't know why you call it the other side. If everything is oneness, it's all here. There's no sides. If we are all one and everything is one and oneness, so space is one and time is one and we are one, so why the other side? Why you call it the other side? I mean, not only you, everybody that I hear is calling it the other side. I like my essence, my core is telling me there's no other side. It's all equal. It just maybe we don't see it, we don't yet experience it, but it's all one. Because if it's oneness, it's literally oneness in every aspect.
You're right, 100%. I think we call it the other side though, because I think when we can't see it right in front of us, there's like a veil. So when we call it the other side, you're on the other side of that veil that's over your eyes.
Okay.
So
fine.
that's for me, like that's what I mean. But you're right, like it is always all around us, and we don't even always need psychedelics to bring us into that open space, like you're saying. I actually got to experience 2 summers ago in Mexico. I did a sweat lodge. One of the hardest things I've ever done because of my illness, because of the pain I experienced. Extreme heat and extreme cold are very hard for me. And I almost gave up after the first round. And the shaman said to me, lay down flat and you'll be able to tolerate it much better. And I don't know why, maybe it was the leaves that they had laid on the floor or the whatever it was, but laying down flat, I had like this incredible experience as though I had taken a psychedelic medicine. I looked into the fire and I saw a wolf, and the wolf jumped out of the fire and grabbed me, my soul, whatever you want to call it, and pulled me out of my body. And it was Mama Wolf, and she took me to a field, and that field was filled with babies. And those babies were all the babies that I had helped bring into this world. And because of my illness, I'm no longer practicing. And it's been a real hurt for me to have lost my ability to help women, to take care of women. But then she took me into a second field. And that field was filled with thousands of people, thousands. And she said to me, you're still midwifing, you're still helping people, you're still helping souls, because just because you're not helping them as a midwife, you're helping them through your work, through your Facebook, through my organization, Ketamine Task Force. She said, you're the helper soul and you'll always be helping people.
Wow.
And it was the most beautiful.
This is so, I can see it. I have a cabin in the woods, and 2 days ago, like Shabbos, I traveled there. My journey was like, I was not born in a frum family. When I was 22, I started becoming more frum until I became very frum, Chabad, Lubavitch, the Lubavitcher rabbi, everything. And then like about 20 years ago, I started a different journey without psychedelics into the Geula, meaning the redemption. And I in the same thing that how do you say, motivated me to put a shaitel on. It's the same thing that motivated me to take the shaitel off and is doing them. And I'm living now like in at least in my head, I know I'm there. I'm in the Geula. No one can take me back to Galus. I'm there. And so on Shabbos, so I observed Shabbos, like the Shulchan Aruch, for maybe 35 years, and now I'm not, but I'm still observing the mitzvos because I believe this is what Hashem wants for me now. And there's no contradiction that a day before he wanted something else from me. We learn it from Avraham Avinu that Hashem told him, but then he told him, and Avram didn't ask question because what's most important is what Hashem wants from me now. So I'm driving on Shabbos and whatever. I mean, the Shulchan Aruch, thanks to the Shulchan Aruch, the Jewish people stayed as one nation, even though they were spread out to the 5 continents. I don't know how many. Maybe there are more, maybe there are. But so on Shabbos morning, I'm going to the cabin and I can make my own fire. There is a how you call it, an oven, a wood oven.
Right.
And looking at the fire, I realize it's giving me so much energy. Now that you talk about the fire and the wolf, so I connected because there's so much energy in the fire, you know, and it's literally just looking at the song, at the dance that the fire is performing is nourishing at least my soul. I believe if you just concentrate on it. And that's why I was like, so wow, when you said about the wolf of fire that came out and then she showed you that wolf of fire showed you all this amazing thing and how you are still a healer. So yeah, it's the first time that I'm speaking in this forum. I don't know when it's going to be the next time. How often do you guys do that?
Well, Leo's the one who arranges it. I think she ran out to walk her dogs. She's been doing them every few months. I actually spoke on her veterans panel as well. And she's done some really cool, I actually haven't listened yet, but she did one about aliens, which I really want to listen to. They're very cool. Yeah. So you should definitely connect with her. And if you want to speak in the future, you should, because it sounds like you have a very interesting story to tell as well. And it's very interesting what you said about the Shulchan Aruch and how God wants different things from us at different times. Because, you know, even though, like I said, I've lost some of my belief in some of the rituals, my faith in God has never been stronger. I mean, past 2 years, I've been davening every day, actually even longer, since COVID started. It was actually, I know it was November 14th, 2020. I said, I'm going to start davening every day and just taking a few minutes in the morning to just daven, meditate, and just feel close to Hashem. And I really feel like, what's that? Go ahead.
I'm doing it too, and I'm doing it while I'm exercising and doing the 5 Tibetan rites. So I'm doing the 5 Tibetan rites, and at the same time, the store is open and I daven. So I understand. Yeah,
absolutely. And I just feel so close to Hashem, and I just feel like, I mean, look, you know, the Torah is what, almost 6,000 years old, and maybe it is okay if, you know, things change a little bit, but you know, God didn't say in the Torah that you can't drive in a car. He didn't say you can't turn on the lights, you know, so. You know,
I know exactly. There's so much for me to tell you about it. If I start, I don't stop. So this is my expertise, learning from the Lubavitcher rabbi that he actually, it's thanks to him that I'm the way I am now. It just all the other Chabad people had to take that forward, you know. But if they really listen to what the Rebbe says, really open their eyes, like the Rebbe said, and ears, everybody would be like me. But like my son is telling me, Ima, you're running too fast. I told him, listen, Menachem, I'll go my path, you go on your path, I go my rhythm, you go your, like everyone's going in their, like what Hashem wants from me, it's not he wants from you. So if I'm going fast, that's my job, that's my essence, and no question ask. I'm not going to ask you questions about how you want to perform, but yeah, that's how in the Geula, we're not gonna need the Shulchan Aruch. We're not gonna need, just like we're not gonna need to eat and drink in order to survive. And it's very hard to understand it, but it's like, it's a basic in the Torah that in the future to come, we're not gonna need to eat and drink in order to survive, if you know that. So Yeah, and I believe that we're living. That's all I want. That's how I want to finish what I want to say today. I believe that based on what the Rebbe says, the Lubavitcher Rebbe says, we are living in the Geula, deep in the Geula. Whatever we see now and we don't understand, it's because the Rambam said that no one knows how the Geula is going to unfold until it happens. So no one knows, but this is some stages of the Geula, of the redemption of Mashiach time. And it started. And just like when Shabbos start, even if you observe it or you don't observe it, it starts. No one can stop the time. No one can stop when it's coming. When the time has come, no one can stop it. So the Rebbe already announced that the Geula is here. So the Geula is here. I mean, that's what I believe based on what the Rebbe says, right? So there's no way to go backwards. We just, things, even though they look now very confusion, like a lot of confusion, but only good things are happening. And even if we don't see them, like you said, that there is a veil, and with all the pain, and it's a deep pain, and I like my heart is broken from what's happening in Israel, not just what happened on October 7th, but how the politicians are handling everything. I know that it's all for good, and it is good, and it's gonna be better, and we shouldn't be scared. And Am Israel Chai, and we're gonna be the light to everyone. First of all, to ourselves, and like you said, goodness and kindness. This was what the Rebbe was promoting all the time. To add in goodness and kindness, to add. And he also said that a small candle, a little light, you cannot chase away darkness with sticks or arms. But if you bring a small candle will bring a light to a very dark room. So we are the small candles, and we do our job, and eventually the whole world will be in a beautiful light. That's it.
Amen. That's really beautiful. And I think that the people in this room and also the people in the psychedelic movement are going to help to bring Mashiach. I really believe that.
I believe.
The people in the psychedelic movement are I know Deb said she has experienced some anti-Semitism, but for the most part, I have not seen any. I've had nothing but support and love. I shared my Jewish story for the first time at MAPS actually this summer. And I had so many people who came up to me after and said, thank you for sharing with us. And, and also, Rick is Jewish, of course. He was the first speaker on this. And, he's always been open about being a Jew. And I just feel like this movement is so filled with love and with people who love one another and want to bring love and light to the world. Like you said, that small little candle, that small little love. And it upsets me that people who are not filled with love and light when they try to come into this space, and I try to push them out, push them away. Like, no, you don't need to be here because you're not part of the love and light movement. But for the most part, I really feel like this group of, especially these, the people I'm surrounded by right now are more filled with love and light than anyone. I mean, I live in an Orthodox Jewish community, and, I'm surrounded by religious people, and I don't feel it here. I really, for the most part, I don't feel spirituality. I don't feel connection with most of them. And it's been very tough. It really has. And, I really feel like, yeah. Because
I feel you. Crown Heights. I still live in Crown Heights.
Oh, wow.
So I know exactly what you're talking about. They look at me like I'm a weirdo because I was promoting tznius and they like being so strict about so many things, so many years. And all of a sudden they see me the opposite and they don't know what's happening. So but I'm strong. That's my essence. That's who I am. And that's it. And just move on with your little candle.
That's exactly. And find your people, find your community. I found the secret Jews who are here, all of us, the secrets ones who are coming out of the closet and showing, that they are part of this community. And even in the Orthodox community, we have a couple here and there who are dabbling their feet in the water. And I'm encouraging it and I'm trying to help them connect. And, I think that, I think we are the light. And I think that's what the Jewish people were meant to be, was the light of the other nations. And I think our light is supposed to be the light of promoting kindness and love and caring. And that's what's going to bring Mashiach, and I really, really, truly believe that that's what's going to happen, and I think how God, after Noah, he sent us the rainbow, and he always said, as long as there's 10 righteous people in the world, he won't destroy it again. And here in this room, well, how many people we have? Let's see. We have 12 of us. So here we go. 12 righteous people. And I think we will be, all of us, we're going to usher in that next generation of.
Amen, amen. Thank you.
No, thank you.
I
really
don't know. Do you want to put your contact on the chat?
Yes.
I'll just take a screenshot.
I will. I'll put it right now.
Where is it? I don't see it.
Hang on. I'm still typing.
Oh, okay.
Put my email, and then I'm going to also put my phone number. If anyone wants to reach out and connect, I'd be very happy to connect with anyone. After I'm done, I'll also put the link to the Jewish Psychedelic WhatsApp group. And I know Leo also started a Signal group for us all to stay in touch as well. And definitely please reach out to me. My organization, Ketamine Task Force, is fighting to get insurance to start covering ketamine. Because right now, insurances, for the most part, are either denying it, or if they do pay, they pay so little that providers can't afford to take insurance. We have some big stuff happening, exciting stuff. We're actually going to be making a 6-part docuseries about women veterans and how ketamine is saving their lives, that we are really hoping to sell to one of the big stations like Netflix or Hulu, one of them. And then we also have a big research study going on that's hopefully going to be starting. We're hoping by next September to get FDA approval for ketamine to be on label for major depression. Because if that happens, then the insurance companies can't deny it anymore. So that's our goal, is to get ketamine on label. Yeah, so we're really fighting. And then once we get ketamine done, we're hoping that when MDMA and psilocybin, all these others get approved, then we're going to set the ground for them getting insurance approval as well, because who can afford it? It's very expensive. I mean, Rick was saying when he was talking, it's like $5,000 a session for MDMA. It's like crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, so we want everyone to be able to afford ketamine and the other drugs as well, MDMA, all of them. So I'm really hoping.
I know only psilocybin. That's all I know. I don't know what's ketamine. I know nothing. I really know nothing at this point. I know very little, but I will learn.
Yeah, absolutely. So MDMA is also, used to be called ecstasy, and when it's being used in clubs, if you've ever heard of ecstasy, it's not, from what I understand, it's not exactly the same drug. What's that?
I heard about ecstasy. I didn't use it. I didn't try it, but yeah, I heard about it definitely.
Yeah.
So what is it? Kimberly?
What's that?
You are Kimberly?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, fine. So I took a screenshot with your 314.
Okay.
Right?
Awesome.
Telephone.
Okay. I'm happy to reach out and talk to anybody. I am on WhatsApp. I talk to a lot of people through WhatsApp. So if anyone wants to reach out, for sure. And also through the Ketamine Task Force, we also have a veterans cohort, which is a group integration experience that meets once a month. So if you guys know any veterans who are looking to reach out or need help or want to connect with other veterans, please feel free to send them my way. And like I said, my new organization, it's called Healing Our Heroes. That's the brand new one. We just started a few months ago, and that's the one that's goal is to bring veterans and others on retreats who need healing. So if you have veterans who might be interested in that, please have them reach out. And our goal is to eventually make our own retreat center in South Florida that's going to be kosher. So our goal is to have one of the only kosher facilities, because that's a big issue for veterans, Orthodox Jewish veterans or veterans from Israel who want to come over and do these things. And they can't, because they can't go because it's not kosher, or because things are taking place on Shabbos that they're not comfortable with. So if we get a group in that's Orthodox and religious, we're going to, cater to them. We'll have davening. We'll make sure that they're comfortable with whatever's going on. We won't do a ceremony on Shabbos. We'll, make it only on the weekdays. Because that's a really important piece. Being an Orthodox Jew in the military, I did get to connect with an organization called Aleph, which connects other Orthodox Jews in the military. They actually saved my life, believe it or not. In commissioned officer training, I had nothing to eat because I was living on cottage cheese, and I actually passed out on my third day because they weren't getting me any kosher food, even though they had promised me. So somebody somehow put me in touch with Aleph, and they actually came and brought me meals, and they actually got me a personal refrigerator that they filled with kosher food and all that kind of stuff for me. So that they're an amazing organization also. So I connected with a lot of other Orthodox Jews in the military. Interesting fact, by the way, Jews make up 2% of the population of the United States, but we make up 4% of the military. When we are the only people that have double the number in the military than we do in the country. So I thought that was a very interesting fact, and it's because we want to serve, we want to help, and that's what the Jewish heart is all about, is helping others. And that's what our heart's all about. Any other questions? Any other comments? I know we have about 10 minutes left if anyone wants to speak up.
Jeremy had somewhat an unrelated comment about anti-Semitism and Israel.
No, not really. I don't think that's appropriate, especially after the helping of with ketamine and stuff. The only comment I have is that it's hard to keep Tikkun Olam alive when you see all the mishigas going on in the news.
Oh my gosh, Jeremy, that is so true. Oh my gosh, yes. I agree with that 1,000%. It's very hard.
Sorry, didn't mean to talk over you. I just wanted to add, it's like, I have it being not Chabad but Chabad affiliate. I gotta say, I've got much love for the Hasidim that say, if you're just sitting there and you're stressed out and you're eating your kishkas out, why not just read Torah? I mean, Tikkun et ha'olam beTorah, no?
Yeah. The Torah is the blueprint of the world. So if we like it or not, that's what it is. It's all there. But I want just to share the craziest thing that happened to me, that one of my neighbors is Black, and I always have good relationships with all my neighbors, including him and some other tenants in the building I live. And I didn't, after October 7th, something changed in him, and his true color came out, and it looked like he's so negative. But the craziest thing is, he said, "You are not even Jewish. You are not Jewish. You are fake."
Did you see?
All these Jewish people, they are fake. The real Jews are the Ethiopians. Go and see the Magen Davids like from 1,000 years ago on their houses. You are not Jewish. What Jewish? And this is, I think, the worst, I think, experience I had. I had a few more, but this was like when someone's telling me that I'm not what I am. So, and with so much, I felt the hate in his voice. Maybe it's my imagination, but that's what I felt.
No. There is. I've worked a lot. I'm a musician, and I've worked a lot in the Black community in Seattle, just like playing jazz and stuff. And since BLM, I've seen this whole uptick of like Farrakhan, like the Farrakhan mentality. Like, I mean, one example is with the Women's March in DC, where it was started by a Jewish woman and then it got taken over, and then the whole like lies about Jews like perpetuating the Atlantic slave trade. It's nasty. The only thing I could say is like, because of Schadenfreude was I think, what was it, like in the Midwest, some crazy like pro-Palestinian woman drove into a BHI headquarters, and I've been laughing about it for like 2 weeks. But what I mean, that's the only joy I had, which is sick. But that's a very big thing. I mean, the colorism and the whole American idea about race is just it's fucks a lot of shit up, especially when it comes to the conflict and everything. So you're not alone in dealing with that. I've been knocked out of groups. I've had like intense arguments with the same thing.
Kimberly, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, of course.
So I'm also a veteran. Thank you for serving. And I'm here in Israel, and I have a good friend who has very bad PTSD, but he absolutely won't consider psychedelics. And I'm wondering if you have any. I just keep offering them as an option, and he just keeps rejecting it. I guess maybe that's it. I just have to accept that he's going to reject it. But do you have any experience like he's scared of it?
So I was terrified, I'll be honest. As a veteran, when you get into the American military, you actually sign a paper. Were you an American or Israeli?
Yeah, American.
American. So thank you for your service as well. So I don't know if you remember when you go to MEPS and you have to sign that paper saying you've never touched drugs in your life.
Right.
I signed it, and of course all of us lie. I'd done a little marijuana, but that was about it. Yeah, I'd never touched psychedelics. I'd never touched anything else. I was terrified before I went in for my ketamine, my first time at the hospital for special surgery. And my best friend, I was literally about to cancel. And I'll tell you, I don't know if you heard the beginning where I was in bed because I have an illness called CRPS. And when I first got my CRPS before ketamine, you couldn't touch my arm or my leg, like anything, even air movement would hurt it so badly. Yeah. So I didn't leave my bed for almost 2 years when it got to that point. And my best friend, she went, because I was about to cancel. I was about to call him. I'm like, I can't do this. This ketamine sounds too scary. There's no way. I'm not going to go through it. And she says to me, Kimberly, you are not living life. What do you have to lose?
Right.
And that was literally the magic word that got me to do it and try it. So I would tell him the same thing. What do you have to lose? Now, probably I would consider ketamine first.
He's worried about losing his mind. I think that's his big.
Yeah, and I understand that because I was scared of the same thing. The nice thing about ketamine is it's in and out, so that's probably the one I would start him on if you have access to it. Because I mean, honestly, that's the only thing I've done so far because I have the fear of the other drugs like lasting too long. That kind of scares me. It lasts hours and hours, and that ketamine, it's like boom, you're in, you're out. Which is nice. And even with ketamine, even when I'm deep in the zone, all I have to do is lift up my eye mask and I know where I am, and so it's not so scary. So I would definitely, I'm happy to talk to him. He could, reach out to me. I put my information in the chat.
Well, I'm here. I'm going to talk to him. I've been encouraging him from afar, but now I'll be here with him. But I know he's having a lot of problems with everything that's going on now, and he's having to take care of his kids. He's just pretty stressed out. So
of course,
But it's just, I feel like it could really help him. It would be great if it, what if it was a breakthrough and it totally helped him. Like you said, what does he have to lose?
Exactly. And he could try. So I have tried microdosing psilocybin, and I'm talking about micro dose. I tried like 0.10, 0.0, like whatever it was so low, and it just made me laugh. So he might want to try that. Like all it did was I laughed for like 6 hours. I had a great time. I mean, it was fun.
That's all. Laughing is good.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
is just going on for 24 hours? This is just like a Zoom for what's happening?
Yeah, so this has been amazing conversations, and it's recorded, so you will be able to go back and listen and hear them. And it's been 24 hours of talking about, ethnogenic medicines and Judaisms. There's been some really incredible speakers. It started with Rick Doblin. He opened us up yesterday. And goodness, we had just like really some just incredible speakers. I was sorry I had to pop off last night. In fact, one of the speakers I really wanted to hear, Leo, about the magic. I was just like, I was so tired at that point. But yeah, this has really been amazing.
Anything was recorded?
Everything.
So where can I watch it?
Leo, where will we be able to watch it?
Yeah, it's on YouTube and it's being live streamed. The live stream links are in the post, and then the final video, the one that's being recorded right now, will be up as soon as this meeting ends.
Oh,
Very
wow.
cool. That
Thank
is
you.
very cool. All right, well, I think Miriam is up next. All right. Thank you, everyone. I just want to say thank you.
What's the link to the YouTube?
I'll post it in the chat in just 1 second here. I just want to say thank you so much to Kimberly, who connected us with two of our moderators, and they were two of the most amazing moderators to hear from. So appreciative of her encouragement and her voice in the movement. I think she's just so impactful and making such a difference in doing so much service work for others that's based in compassion. So I just want to say thank you for all her hard work in the movement, and pass the mic. This is our very last virtual passing of the mic to Miriam. And just want to say thank you to everyone for a wonderful 24-hour event. It's just been beautiful. So thank you. And Miriam, take it away in our last hour.
Thank you so much, Leo. I am so glad to be here. Very grateful to all of you for being present. I want to open with an intention. This is my way of praying. I want to honor the divine presence and honor our ancestors upon whose shoulders we stand. May all prisoners be freed. May all who have left their bodies find their way to peace.
Amen.
And may all who are hurting be healed.
Amen.
May this be a safe container for sacred learning. And may we each find and elevate our own divinity, and in doing so, repair this broken world. So, welcome. I would like to briefly introduce myself. My name is Miriam Katz. I am zooming in from the ancestral land of the Massachusetts tribe in Boston, Massachusetts. I have been a psychonaut for about 30 years, and I am the co-founder of the School of Hebrew Shamanism. And through that school, I teach primarily the tool of shamanic journeying and how to use that tool to access the realms of non-ordinary reality and higher consciousness. And so the first question that I'd like to address is what am I doing here at this, conference where people are talking about use of psychedelics for healing and various purposes? And the answer is that for me, my experience with psychedelics is that they are involved tools that require several hours commitment. They tend to require healthy bodies, a healthy state of mind, and a lot of safety protocol and preparation. And shamanic journeying is a bite-sized version of these kind of psychedelic travels that can be used in 10 or 15 minutes. Initially, we use it by using percussion or some sort of, repetitive sound to shift our consciousness, but eventually it becomes something that is available upon intent. to access. And so I'm offering this to you as fellow travelers who are interested in accessing these alternative realms as a way to do it quickly and easily so that you can tap in. Sabina, I see you waving. If anyone has questions at any point, you can feel free to just unmute yourself and hop in. Hi, Sabina.
I just want to be there. Whatever you described, I want to be there. That's it. I'll be in touch with you. Leave your contact. If you're gonna leave your contact, I'll contact you.
Wonderful.
I mean, I want to contact everyone. I hope I'll have the time. But yes, please leave your contact.
Wonderful. Thank you. So what I'll say is that the best way to reach me and to learn about learn about opportunities to study with me and to learn these tools is through my website, HebrewShaman.com, Hebrew, SHAMAN.com. So, and this will be a workshop today. So I will be teaching you the tool of shamanic journeying, and you will have a shamanic journey. And for those of you who have not yet done it, it may be clumsy, but there always has to be a first in order to get into this. So this will be an interactive experience where you'll get to really dive in and try it out and ask questions afterwards or share. So let's see. So the next question I'll address is, what is Hebrew shamanism? Because this is the context in which I'm offering this. So for me, as someone who grew up Jewish and had a strong Jewish education, I found that I had to find my spirituality outside of Judaism, with the exception of some, Kabbalistic retreats in Israel that were really moving and not sustainable. And so I found my spiritual home in shamanism. And shamanism is an earth-based modality that was born on every continent where there were humans. It is one of the most ancient forms of spirituality, and it has survived until this day. And so there are many indigenous traditions that will offer teachings about this. And when I learned that all ancient peoples practiced shamanism, which is a form of animism, right? And understanding that there is spirit in everything, and we can connect into that consciousness and make deeper connections and repair our connections and walk with reciprocality and respect in the world. So when I learned that every ancient civilization had a shamanic past and a shamanic root, I started looking at what are the shamanic roots of Judaism. And that's where I discovered all of these tools that were pre-Jewish. So I call this modality Hebrew shamanism as opposed to Jewish shamanism, because some of what emerged through those studies and excavations were the pantheon of the pre-Jewish people. So, in Judaism, we have many names for God. And in my excavations, I learned that many of these names were actually different gods, right? So there's a difference between El and Elohim and Shekhinah and all of these Yud-Hey, Vav-Hey. There are all these different ways of and different faces of the divine. And yet still God is one, right? It's still, for me, it is consistent with monotheism and panentheism, the understanding that there is divinity in all things and divinity is beyond the all. And so we'll just I want to address theology very briefly and then put it to the side, because Hebrew shamanism is something that can be practiced whatever your spiritual belief is, and as a strict monotheist. Because what we're doing is we're moving into altered states of consciousness, and we're accessing hidden realms, non-ordinary reality, for guidance and for healing, and really for anything we want. So there's just this infinite toolkit that I'll be teaching you today. So one of my teachers, Sandra Ingerman, calls shamanic journeying the path of direct revelation. So what that means is that we don't just need to learn about the prophets of old who connected to the divine and what their visions were, but we can actually tap in and receive our own. And we can do it in bite-sized chunks. So we don't need to set aside a whole day and secure medicine and a sitter and all the things that you might need to do as a psychonaut. The way that we navigate and understand our experiences in non-ordinary reality are through intuitive senses. And so I'm going to give you now an overview of what those intuitive senses are so that you can understand your experience when you go in. So again, I'm preparing you for this journey that we're going to take today in non-ordinary reality. So we have 4 primary intuitive senses. These are called clairs. In English. So there are clairvoyance. Most people have heard of a clairvoyant. There's clairsentience. There's claircognizance and clairaudience. And so I'll go through each of them briefly so that you can recognize your sense or senses when you're in altered consciousness. Okay. And you can use that, lean on that sense to gather information. Clairvoyance means clear seeing. So if you are a person who is more visual, that when you close your eyes and you're in altered states, maybe through meditation, or if you've practiced shamanic journeying, maybe you see colors or images. This is clairvoyance. They tend to be symbolic, the images that show up. And so they tend to require some level of interpretation, but I would guide you as you are going through this experience to just keep it to the inputs that you're receiving and not spin a story in your head about what you're seeing. Okay, because our mind wants to control, it wants to interpret. And when we're in a shamanic journey state, we want to put our analytic mind to the side and we want to become channels or recipients of information. And so what is the image that's coming through, or what is the color that's coming through? And then to track your other senses as you're receiving this image. Some people may receive no images. It might be all black or whatever color, and that's okay. It doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It means another sense is active. So when I say track your other senses, the primary thing that I'm tracking is clairsentience, which is clear feeling. So this might come as sensations, like maybe you feel a hand somewhere on a shoulder or on your hand. Maybe it's emotional. Maybe you're noticing joy or expansion in your heart. Did I see a question? No, okay. Maybe, for those of us who have worked with psychedelic medicines, you may notice these expansive states where it feels electric or open, or you feel like there's light moving through your body. These are all signs of clairsentience, right? And just because it came through in a psychedelic state doesn't mean that's how you'll receive it shamanically in your shamanic journeying state. So know that there is some difference and some flux between different kinds of states of altered consciousness. So just be open and track what's coming through your senses, right? So clairsentience is generally through the body. The third clair sense is claircognizance, clear knowing. And this is when we receive downloads or information that drops in and we don't necessarily know how we know it. It just appeared. We didn't study it. No one told us. We just know. So say you're in a journey and you just know that there is an antelope there, right? We're going to look at power animals. So say you just know there's an antelope. You don't know how you know, just accept it and move on. That's an input. That's information. Okay. The fourth primary sense, intuitive sense, is clairaudience, which means clear hearing. So clairaudience can show up as sounds. It might sound like a melody. You might hear a song or song lyrics that you know or that you don't recognize. You might hear a voice. If you're hearing a voice, I like to differentiate. Does it sound like my voice? Does it sound like someone else's voice? Is it inside of my head, or does it sound like someone speaking in my ear? If so, which ear? There are all these questions you can ask as you're tracking. You really want to tune into your senses and notice. Does it sound like a voice I recognize? What happens inside of me as I hear this voice or these sounds? This is clairaudience. There are lesser clairs. So clear, I don't remember the names for them, but clear smelling and clear tasting. So one night I woke from a dream and I smelled rose in my room, and I smelled it so strongly. And then I tuned into my senses and I noticed my heart expanding, right? And then I tuned into my imagery senses and I noticed an image of divine feminine, of goddess. And so all of these inputs together told me a story, and I didn't need to use my brain to fill in the details. I just picked the inputs and took them as a whole, and they told a story. So that's an example of how things might work in shamanic journey. One thing to know is that you can ask questions and you can navigate. So I have a teacher named Christina Pratt who does not receive any imagery in her journeys, right? It's totally black. And so what she's learned to do is navigate using her hands. And so she'll feel around, she'll put her hands out, and maybe she'll notice there's a tree, right? Or something furry. And she'll put her hands on the object or being, and she'll say, what is the true nature of this? And it's such a powerful question. And I use it in, I didn't mention, I work as a shamanic healer. So I work with people all over the world. And I do this work in the journey state, in the altered state of consciousness. And so if I'm pulling artifacts or energetic objects out of someone's body, and say there's an anchor in their spine, I will put my hands on it and I'll say, what is the true nature of this? And I'll begin to receive information of what this is energetically and what it's doing there. And so that's a powerful question. Other questions might be, if you're clairaudient, but you can't quite hear it, you might say, can you speak up, right? Or if you're given some sort of information that doesn't make sense to you, you can ask clarifying questions. So you really do have agency here. And when we talk about a shamanic journey state, my teacher, Sandra Ingerman, describes it as on a continuum of consciousness, where on one end of the spectrum, you would have a daydream. And on the other end of the spectrum, you would have a night dream where you are not lucid dreaming. So the night dream is coming at you, right? And there's information showing up, but you're not co-creating it consciously, right? The daydream, you are creating everything, right? You're saying, well, what if I walk down the street and I meet this person? And you can kind of make up the whole story in your head. Shamanic journeying falls somewhere in the middle, where you are navigating, you are responsible for all of your journeying, where you're going, what question or intention you're setting, what you're saying, and what you're asking. The being or beings who show up in that journey state are in the realm of dream, in that they are responsible for what they are telling you, what they are showing you. So you're the player, but it's like being in a video game where whatever that game has to show you is going to show up. And one of the most common questions people ask when they start shamanic journeying is, am I making all of this up? And the answer is maybe, right? And maybe it doesn't matter. And let's just suspend judgment and take all of the inputs and see what information comes through. But know that you're in the middle of that spectrum. You're likely in the middle of that spectrum, and you're in control of yourself, and whatever this being or beings have to say is coming from them. And if it sounds completely bizarre, if whatever they're telling you is something that you wouldn't dream up, then it's a good sign that you're on the right track, right? You wouldn't have thought to say that. So there's validation for you there. And I used to, when I would journey for other people, I'd say to myself, this is so bizarre. How could I share this? Right. And then I would share these things. And while they wouldn't make sense to me, they would make sense to that other person. And so the more you practice saying, what seems bizarre, or writing down or trusting it, the more you start to realize that it is coming from a divine consciousness or an heightened consciousness. So are there any questions about any of that before we move on? Okay, great. So what we're going to do is we're going to move on to a map of the journey. And I am going to hopefully share screen. So let's see, am I able to share screen? I share screen. There we go. Okay. So this is a cosmological map to where we're going. I like to call it the map of the three wombs. So in shamanic traditions across culturally, there are three worlds. The reason I call them the three wombs is because according to the Kabbalists in Sefer Yetzirah, there are three mother letters who created these three worlds. And so a mother can have a womb, which is a realm of creation where magical things can happen. And so I like to call these the three wombs to really call out the magical nature of what's possible here, that these are all realms of potential and potentiality where we can bring in intention and make magic happen. Maybe that magic is healing, or maybe it's something else. So this is a neutral toolkit, and I like to advise that it be used for good. That's my intention with these tools anyway. So we dwell in the middle world, or the middle womb. It is the realm of the mother letter Aleph, and I like to call it the atmospheric realm. So the element associated with Aleph is Ruach, which is wind, right? So we breathe here. This is the mental realm, and we are in ordinary reality. When we move into a shamanic journey state, we're moving into non-ordinary reality. And what I'll say about non-ordinary reality in the middle world is it's generally not where beginning journeyers start, because there can be disembodied spirits in this world, people who crossed over or people who died and didn't have the opportunity to cross over. And some trickster kind of fairy-like, beings. And so we tend not to start here. That's more for advanced journeyers. Where we do tend to start is in the lower world or lower womb. This is the realm of Mem, mother letter Mem, and it's the realm of Mayim or water. It also it's like deep earth or inner earth. And the way that we journey into the lower world is to find a journey tunnel or hole and to drop down through it. It's kind of like a birthing process where we're navigating deep into the earth, right? And we're going through the darkness and we come out somewhere in the light. Or if you're not seeing, right, maybe it feels like light. We're moving out into a conscious space. And the lower world tends to be pristine, untouched nature. So it will have landscapes much like our world, or maybe it looks different to you. And everyone has their own inner world and own inner perception of what things look like. And so there's no right or wrong. My lower world tends to look different from your lower world. Though there are some ancient civilizations that mapped out what these worlds look like. And so they might have more specific imagery. We also have the upper world, the world of Shin or Shamayim, the sky, or the heavens. And for those of you who have studied the Baal Shem Tov, he would do aliyot neshama, so elevations of the soul, where he would go to the upper world and he would find these different realms of consciousness. And this is something we can do also through shamanic journeying. This is another place where people might start, but I will be going the traditional route and bringing us into the lower world first, because it tends to be the most easy and accessible and safe. Are there any questions about this map before I move on, or this piece of it? Okay, so I will stop share. Great. Okay, the way that we will be doing shamanic journeying is I will use repetitive percussion to create an altered state of consciousness. So what happens is we have two hemispheres of our brain. We have the left and right hemisphere, and our more logical hemisphere is the left brain. And when we start using repetitive percussion, can you hear me speaking over the drum? Not great. Okay, we didn't do a sound check before, so I just won't speak over the drum. When we use repetitive percussion, what we're doing is we're kind of lulling our left brain into a resting space so we can move our consciousness into that right brain imaginal realm. And from there, we can go into a journey much more strongly. So I will be journeying with that repetitive beat throughout. And as long as you're hearing that, you know that the journey is on, you're in it. And then at the end of 15 minutes, which is how much time I will allot for your first journey, I will do a callback sound. So the callback sounds like this. So first we're doing repetitive. That's the repetitive beat. And I will pause and I will go. So 7. Another 7, and I'll do that 4 times.
Cannot hear.
You can't hear it. Okay, that's helpful to know. Let me fix my settings. Audio settings. Original sound. That should do it. All right, let's try this again. Do you hear this? Do you hear that? No. Okay, let's try this. Now, one more time.
Yeah.
Okay, great, we found it. So the repetitive percussion sounds like this. That's your typical journey sound. And when I'm calling you out, I pause and then I hit the drum 7 times. And then I pause and I do that 3 more times. That's the callback. And then I'll start drumming faster. And that's the sign to retrace your footsteps and go back the way you came from, back up your journey tunnel. That's a running beat. And it's saying, go back to where you came from. Come back out to the middle world where your body is. You're moving back into your body. And then you'll come out. And if you'd like, you'll take some notes. And then we can have a debrief session. So that may be saying, you know, whatever questions you might have. It may be sharing your journey or whatever aspect of your journey you feel comfortable sharing. So that will be the interactive piece of it. Let me talk about how you go down into the lower world so that you're getting ready for the journey and you know how to do that. We are looking for a hole in the ground, and we are going down through that hole until we reach a light at the end of the tunnel, right? So we're going down through a hole into the light. That hole might appear in a power spot that we had when we were little or at some point in our life. Maybe there's a spot outside in nature that you just love, that you feel so connected to, so empowered at, and you just imagine that there's a hole in the ground there. Maybe you have a favorite tree and you imagine that there's a hole or a doorway in that tree, and you're going down through that, going into that hole and then dropping down into the earth and tunneling down. The key is that you just keep going. So you may notice that you've picked a journey spot, you imagine yourself going down and through it, and maybe you hit a rock, You can go around it. This is the imaginal world. You can make it up, right? You make up your side of things. So just keep going until you get there. If you need to start with another hole in the ground or in the water, you can do that. Just invent another one, imagine yourself going down through it, and intend to go until you arrive. Okay, it's critical to just keep going so that you get there. I'm trying to think what else. Okay, the other thing about doing a journey is that you want to have a clear intention when you go down. So the typical first journey that one would do, according to, so Michael Harner is the practitioner who came up with the form of journeying that we're doing, which is called shamanic journeying through core shamanism, right? And what he would recommend is you go down into the lower world for your first journey and you meet a power animal, right? So you're holding the intention of finding an animal who will communicate with you and who will be a protector for you. And that is a building block that you can then use in other journeys or in your psychedelic experiences, where for me, jaguar is one of my power animals. So I have a little jaguar who I keep on my altar, right? I don't worship jaguar. I work with jaguar. We have a reciprocal symbiotic relationship. And so jaguar protects me when I'm doing dangerous work in the other realms. So maybe you're going down to meet an animal, right? Or maybe you are going down to meet a face of the divine. So that's something that I offer. What I found is that your first journey, for those who have connections with divine beings and are open to that, does not need to be looking for a power animal. If you want to meet a goddess or another divine being, that you could ask for the divine being who is most aligned with you and most supportive to you at this time, and you can go meet them. And that can be really fruitful as well. And it's a personal decision. So I'll trust you in setting your intention. So you're setting your intention, whether it's meeting your power animal or meeting a divine being. You're imagining a place in nature, and you are dropping down through that space into the lower world to meet that divine being or that power animal. And when you meet them, you're starting a relationship. So I like to bring a gift, just like if I were invited to someone's house for Shabbat dinner, I would bring a bottle of wine or a challah or something like that, right? So when you meet this being, you can offer them, maybe it's your favorite food. I often will bring chocolate, right? And you're imagining that you're giving this to that being, okay, to build that relationship. Yeah, a glass of wine for Elijah, exactly. So you're giving a gift, you're introducing yourself, and you're getting to know this being. Who are you? There's all sorts of information about power animals generically and what they can do for us and how they can protect us. But when you meet your power animal, you're getting to know them. Maybe they have a name. Maybe they have a history with you that they want to share. Maybe they have a specific way that they're supporting you at this moment in time, whether you're doing your own emotional or psychological healing, given the weight of what we're carrying in the world today. Maybe it's something specific to your life. Maybe they have advice or input for you. These beings can be worked with for healing, for guidance, for just about anything you might need. So we're building that relationship. And then eventually you will hear that prompt to come back, and you will come back. So when you entered the lower realm, you came out of a tunnel into the light, you found a landscape, you observed what's in this landscape. Again, if you're not seeing with your eyes, maybe you're feeling around with your hands, or you're listening. Do I hear running water? Is there a river nearby? Is there a mountain? Is there a tree? What is it like down here, right? So then you're kind of following your heart until you find that animal or that divine being, and you have that conversation, that interaction. And when you're done and you get that journey prompt, you are going to come back, right? You retrace your footsteps back to the tunnel. You tunnel back up, back into your physical body, into waking consciousness. If you have a pen and a pad nearby, you can write down some notes about your journey so you can remember it. And then we'll have a conversation and hear about your journeys, about any challenges that came up and whatever you want to talk about. So I've just put out a lot of information. Does anyone have questions about any of what I've shared? Any of how a shamanic journey happens?
Okay. No. I just hope I remember everything.
Yeah, so you set an intention. You can do that now, and that's in your body, right? And then you're going to a place in nature, you're dropping down through the earth, and you're looking for that being that you've identified. You don't know in advance what animal it is, right? Or what divine being it is. You're going with an intention to find the one that's right for you. Okay, and then trust what shows up. It's not, we tend to question because we're so used to being in our logical brain. Just trust and act as if this is true. Whatever's coming in, just act as if it's true and trust it. Before we journey, I will be opening sacred space and calling in the 7 directions, just like we do during Sukkot when we shake the lulav in all the directions. That's one of the most shamanic holidays in Judaism. And so we'll be calling in the directions to create a safe and sacred container for this journey so that you are protected as you go into the non-ordinary realms. Okay, so I will do that. And then I'll remind you about where we're going and we'll go in. Okay, so you can go inward. And let me just ask, Sabina, since you are the one who is unmuted and listening, can you hear my voice over the drum? Beautiful, thank you. I feel protected here because Sabina was my grandmother's name, so just honoring that as well. So I always start with the spirit of the center, which is in the heart center of the physical body. That realm of Aleph, mother letter Aleph. So we call out to our heart to be that sacred guide as we move into non-ordinary reality today. Calling out to Ima Aleph to guide us in this work. We call out to the spirit of the great below, Mother Mem, Ima Mem, to rise up, to bring those waters, that watery consciousness, and to hold us from below. And we call out to the spirits of the great above, that spirit of Sheen, Ima Sheen, to shine her light upon us, to illuminate our path. And we call out to the spirit of Mizrach, the east, the guardians of the east, to hold a safe and sacred container for our journeys today. We call out to the spirit of Darom, of the south, the guardians of the south, to hold us safely as we journey today. Calling out to the spirits of Ma'arav, the guardians of the west, to hold us from the west in this safe and sacred container. We call out to the spirits of Tzafon, of the north, to close the circle, sealing it from all 7 directions. And at this point, I like to imagine that I am inside of an orb or a sphere that is sealed from all 7 directions, from all around and from within. You're in this safe and protective bubble that you can now use to journey. And so get comfortable. For journeying, you can lie down or sit comfortably with your eyes closed. You're going to go within. And since we're doing it as a first journey or a beginner journey, I'm going to do what I call dropping you off, like as if we're all on a bus, a little tour bus, and we're going to take you to the place where you need to be, and then I'm going to drop my voice off and you'll go on your own journey. So you've set your intention to meet a being in the lower world who can be an ally for you. maybe this is an animal, maybe this is a divine being. And we are going outside. So you might imagine that you are your light body or your non-physical body, your neshama is moving out of your physical body and going outside. And you are going to a place in nature where you feel a connection to your journey spot. And you are finding a hole that leads down into the ground, like a tunnel all the way into the heart of the earth, into that realm of Mem, the lower world. So imagine yourself moving into that tunnel. You're holding your intention of meeting this being. And from here, I will go quiet. And you will hear from me in 15 minutes when it's time to come back. So go in peace. Retracing your footsteps back to ordinary reality, back into your body. Back into your body. Back into your body. When you find yourself back in the room, you can spend a few minutes debriefing. You can write down any notes you want to remember from your experience. So anyone who wants to share or ask questions, the first journey is the hardest one. So if you hit any roadblocks or want to share from your journey, this is your opportunity. You can also, if you don't want to be on camera and you want to put something in the chat, I'm happy to read it and address it, whatever works best for you.
I can share.
Thank you.
So I went down and it was dark. And then I saw trees. And then I saw something that started to form like a human shape, face. But it didn't complete. It was like coming and going, coming and going. I wasn't sure even if it was a female or a male. And then it was it was a little lighter, darker, and dark again. And then I started seeing just like sky, just the sky coming and going, like hiding and revealing, on and off, sometimes like dust on it, like black dust on it, and then clearing up and seeing the sky, blue sky. And then I tried to find, where are you? Where are you? Who are you? What are you? Are you there? Like trying to look for that being. And then I started to imagine stuff, I think, like people I know, someone I know. At a certain point, I don't know how I want to share it, even though it's it's not a little, it's very intimate, but I felt like a sexual drive. I don't know where it came from. And then I said, what it has to do now with what I'm doing. I'm trying to look for that being, for that protector. And it a little took me off trying to find that being. And then you called us back. That's it. But the most thing that I saw was the blue sky. This is what I saw the most. Either dark, pitch black, or blue sky. And everything else was in between.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Well, thank you for sharing. It sounds like you were experiencing claircognizance, clear seeing, clairsentience, clear feeling, right? And there was some question of like, is my mind thinking about and creating, and what's coming in, right? But the things that were coming in with this being, right, non-gendered being, or being that you couldn't perceive, if there was a gender, couldn't perceive their face in the sky. And so these are inputs that you can go back in if you want and look further, right? Maybe there's a sky being who's trying to connect with you. So it's a start. And like I said, the very first journey is going to be the clunkiest because it's a muscle and you have to build it, right? So the first one's the hardest. So you have that behind you now, and you can go back in, and it'll get easier and easier. The more you practice, the stronger it gets.
So question,
Mhm.
the beating of the drumming
Mhm.
was, I mean, really speaks to me. Is there a way how I feel it's essential for me to hear it in order to go there?
Yeah.
Is there any recording that I can find that will
Yes.
help me go there?
Yeah,
Okay.
so this session is recorded, so you can find that on YouTube or wherever our organizers will post it. And you can also go onto YouTube and look for shamanic drumming. Sandra Ingerman, my teacher, has a lot of recordings out there as well, which are on YouTube or Spotify, so you can use those as well. And a more advanced skill would be to have your own drum and to take yourself into that journey space. And so I see some feedback that was amazing. Thank you. That was truly phenomenal. Earthy sexuality, the sexuality of existence, someone who had a realization about different personality types, one of which is the chaos magi. That's really interesting, right? To get input on what's happening in the world today. So I know we kind of did this in a very accelerated time period. I want to thank you all for being willing to go there, for doing something fun and exciting and experimental, and honor you all for being here, and honor our organizers for bringing us together. So thank you all. And if you're interested in learning more, you can find me at the School of Hebrew Shamanism. The website is HebrewShaman.com.
I didn't find it.
HebrewShaman.com. Yeah, I'll put it in the chat again. HebrewShaman.com.
I find it. School of Hebrew Shamanism. I found it. Okay. I'm on the website.
Beautiful.
Wow.
Yeah.
Miriam, this has just been such a phenomenal last hour, and I've just been so affected by your energy and your vibe, and just such a joy and pleasure to meet you and get acquainted with what you're about, and just appreciate so much the work you're doing in the world. A lot of your talk resonated with me just as an individual, but I just wanted to say, in the next 5 minutes, we're kind of looking for someone to do a prayer to close us out, and not sure if anyone feels called to that and wants to just step to the stage, but really just appreciate everyone's contribution. And I just think 5 more minutes of conversation, and while we figure out our prayer, just hang with us, or if you have to say
to do a prayer.
Okay, wonderful.
I'd love to do a prayer. This is something I close with frequently when I'm guiding a journey. I really love this one. And it's important that you already have your word for what you call your higher power, or God, or spirit, or the universe, or mother, or whatever it is, Shekhinah, everything. So find your word. And now I want you to take a breath in. Feel your body with that breath. Let it go all the way to your fingertips, all the way to your head, your feet. And I just like to take my hands and either put them like this, or put them like this. Put them like this. Oh dear, and I'm just going to say, dear beloved God, we give thanks for our togetherness, our sameness, our contrasts, and the light
Amen.
and resilience we reflect back to one another.
Amen.
We give thanks for the holy that holds us, and the humanity that brings us back to the holy, to see
Amen.
the light and the resilience we reflect back to one another. We ask that our self-compassion becomes love and understanding for everyone around us, that our personal happiness be woven to the heart of the world, and that our nourishment feed the collective. May the sweetness of this moment radiate to all beings everywhere, that we may see the light and resilience we reflect back to one another.
Amen. Amen.
Amen. So be
Amen.
it.
Amen.
I'll be so blessed.
Amen.
Amen. Amen.
So Lead Road till I see you all again at the next wonderful 24-hour Leo-led event. This is such a pleasure to be here, Leo. Thank you so much, and everyone.
I really feel like it's everyone, and then I just get to be the glue, you know. So it's just precious to see people step up, especially people that are shy or, you know, haven't met other people, and maybe they meet someone special. So thank you so much for bringing your friends. Have a good one.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. See y'all. Have a good day.